The one thing, real quickly, I just wanted to get to you. Did you watch the Snyder Cut trailer? I remember us. Did we record? I think we did record when we saw Justice League. That was like one of our first podcasts, I think. And we didn't. I don't think. I'm trying to remember. Did we like it? Did we not? I don't remember it being
like
fun.
it. I mean,
I don't remember liking it. Yeah. Are you excited about the new Snyder Cut?
I'm interested. It is. I don't really think it's going to be good necessarily, but I'm interested, and I'm not like a huge Zack Snyder fan. Like I actually have, I have some issues with some of the stuff that he does, but he is an auteur with a specific style. And one of the biggest things when I was watching, the Justice League that they released was like you kind of really did wonder what was the original vision, because it was kind of like so clearly a like Frankenstein monster of Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder, and that was probably the most interesting part of it, is kind of parsing like, oh, that's a Joss Whedon scene and that's a Zack Snyder scene. Like it's so obvious just the way they're shot and lit, and just the dialogue and the tone and everything like that. So that was the most fascinating thing about the cut, but it did not make for a really good coherent movie, and so it would be nice, just because like DC really was like trying to like make that like a big deal, and so many things got fumbled, some things in their control, some things out of their control. So it would be nice to just kind of see this thing finally shown in all its full glory, quote unquote, and that way we can actually judge. But that it is interesting, like we're at this point in history where we can like, there's a lot of like famous unfinished films or whatever that like suddenly companies like Netflix and HBO have the money to finish, and it's it really will be fascinating, because I think there's a lot of things that it's always so much easier to say like, oh, this movie that never was the masterpiece that never got to see the light of day. But the thing is, sometimes it's always easier to say that, and then like when reality comes, like remember when that last Predator movie came out, and we were all like, oh fuck, what's his name? The guy that like did
Shane Smith or Shane
Black. Yeah, everyone was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, Shane Black, like the guy that was in the original, the guy that did Lethal Weapon and everything like that. He'll know what to do with the franchise, and then that was like abysmal. So it's it's one of those things where we are actually at a time where we can get what we finally have always wished for, but the question is, will it live up to our fantasies and everything?
It is kind of bullshit that they have this get out of jail free card. Like, we didn't really like it, we're just gonna redo it, and then we're like, we'll afford to have Jared Leto come back and film new weird scenes and stuff. It is wild, like Akira Kurosawa, like George Lucas and those people. Like just the ability to just. I wonder how those schools of thought work, where Lucas was just such a savage, where he was like, let's go back and fix this or that. I didn't imagine it that well, but I didn't have the technology then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he can't say shit, you know what I mean? Because he's redigitized all his old films and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know, man.
I hate that shit, especially in this age of Disney Plus, because
this is the ultimate.
But the whole thing where it's like, I feel like the Justice League is kind of its own beast, but like the whole thing that Lucas and Spielberg started, where like we're gonna start digitally altering things, that's one thing, but like in this age of streaming only, where kind of Disney funnels everything to their one platform, and they have control like which version of like say Star Wars that you see. Like if you don't want to see it with all the new digital effects added in, or if you want to see it with the original Fox logo and all this other shit, like they are the ones that have the final say whether you can do that or not. So that's the one thing. I didn't have a problem with that until recently, when streaming has become the new kind of pipeline where we all get our media from, and it's just weird that you can actually kind of like reverse engineer history a little bit, which is a little, I don't know, like I
think it's just wild that they're like, they've got years of listening to people complain about something, they can go back, change it, they can add to it, they can reshoot stuff. A lot of it was all digital. You don't like the way what was Homeboy's name, the main villain?
Oh,
Steppenwolf.
Oh yeah, in
they're like, yeah, you didn't like the way he looked. Yeah, we'll change that. Oh, you wanted more dark seed. We'll get him.
Can we throw Sonic the Hedgehog in there too?
Just You know what I mean? But like, yeah, let's pump up Wonder Woman a little bit. Ooh, Cyborg, we're not really working with him much now. Yeah, let's cut his role back. Like they could literally, like the levels of a soundboard, more Gal Gadot, less Ray Fisher, more Ezra.
I mean,
they can kind of like fine tune it. It's totally weird.
Yeah. Do you think? Where do you think this is going? Because if you think about it, like the internet is the best sort of. It's the best. It is the equivalent of the mall in Cincinnati that they go to do all of these like test screenings. So if you basically treat the initial release as a test screening, and if it goes badly enough, you actually it's almost like it's basically it's like a Cyberpunk 2077 thing, like where you have an abysmal release, but you can basically make a patch of a movie. Didn't they do that with Cats too? Like, wasn't there like unfinished effects in Cats? So then they had to go and like send out a new version that had like some of the renderings finished or whatever.
Yeah, and I've still not seen Cats, but I did not see it in theaters, so I could not really give you a real take on how it looked versus compare what it was lacking. I've heard that even the patched version was severely underwhelming. So
I'm still waiting for that long lost, long rumored all butthole version. So one day, here's hoping that'll be a Patreon,
one day.
Watch along or something.
Well, there you go. I mean, so we're stacked. We've got a ton of crap. We've seen
everything.
We've seen it all. Just so we're gonna ram through these. Or we're gonna pile in some better than worse. We watch a lot of stuff. Some good, some bad.
Definitely ran the
some
gamut
we've watched.
Week.
Yeah, we're all over the place, but we, and things that I saw that Mr. Andrew Volpe here did not, and vice versa. So we're just going to dive in. I think one of the few probably on the list this week that we both saw, Judas and the Black Messiah. My God, this has got to be just as you say, the 4-quadrant Oscar darling. In a standard normal year, you got to imagine this one would be pretty well up there. Daniel Kaluuya, Lakeith Stanfield, always great. Jesse Plemons. They
gotta throw the Plems
Martin
in there.
Sheen out there.
Yeah, Martin Sheen.
The Plems. Martin Sheen in there randomly as a deeply disturbed, severely racist J. Edgar Hoover, which neither here nor there about the liberties they may have taken with him or not. You know what I mean? But they basically did just make him appear as the almighty Satan in the movie. So,
oh, really? I thought he was really a morally gray character. He had multifacets. No, he was definitely all but like cackling for most of the movie.
He was wild in this movie. Yeah, and but he was weird, wasn't he? Like he's spying on JFK. He's doing all kinds. He had JFK wired,
and same thing. Didn't he do that for
and
Martin
RFK?
Luther King and all the everyone.
Martin Luther King. He had dirt on everybody. You know what I mean? He was out there running around like a savage. But I think he had the audio tapes of JFK banging Marilyn Monroe and stuff that he was flying around saying, don't get too crazy with me, bruh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Crazy times.
If you don't want these hitting the tablet. Yeah, imagine, I think we're probably living in those times again with just the weird state surveillance and all that stuff, I'm sure. But
that's kind of one of the things I liked about this movie is it really did do, it felt, it brought to life a lot of things that, you kind of see in file footage on the History Channel, on whatever you see, documentaries and everything like that. But it's not until recently, as I've gotten older, that I've started to kind of, you're able to put yourself in the mindset of certain big historical events more that you kind of just take for granted when you're growing up, because that's set in stone. But when you think of big times of social change and unrest and everything like that, it's pretty crazy. And I think that is probably why they're making this movie around now, but yeah, that's one of the things I liked, because I've heard of how the Black Panthers did certain things, had programs for local social programs and everything like that. So it was kind of
like feeding kids breakfast every day and daycare. I mean, they were trying to kind of they were edging in with a lot of social programs to help out, but also they, like I guess how churches would do it. To me, it was very, churches,
another,
the
social
pancake
group kind of thing. Basically.
Yeah, like pancake Sundays. Oh, by the way, the service is at 8 a.m.
Totally.
Tomorrow or stuff. You know what I mean? Like churches want to draw people in. They use their facilities and programs to help, people and give back and do canned food drives. But they obviously want people to come in and join their congregation. I think the Black Panthers were kind of of that similar mindset. It's a successful model of how to grow an organization. But yeah, real quick, like if you're unaware and you're looking at this and, is this worth your time? We're just going to do a quick kind of non-spoiler review, but it's it's based on true events. A lot of it's, I read a great article on the Smithsonian website kind of talking about how, where did it take some liberties? Where did it not? What can't you, things that you thought like, oh man, that has to be exaggerated. Actually, it's not. Like, it's actually pretty true to the story. Court documents, leaked files, freedom, stuff has come out in the last couple of years. Like in 2020, like some weird documents came out kind of linking Hoover to this and that and stuff.
Yeah, like I had never heard this story before.
No, me neither.
But it was cool. But yeah, I mean, not in non-spoiler ways, it does seem like they have a little bit of an afterword that does kind of indicate, there has been more things.
More developments.
Yeah, in recent times and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. But just, very quickly, it's based around two different guys. One of them is Fred Hampton, played by Daniel Kaluuya, and he is a up-and-coming, rising... At this point, the film takes place in like
It's like 68?
Late 60s. Kind of...
it's like
in the thick of Vietnam and
it's like
and,
post
Chicago.
Martin Luther King getting assassinated, but pre Malcolm X, I think.
Right. I think because I believe Malcolm X is still alive at this point, and it's about Fred Hampton, who is the Black Panthers. They adopted a ton of kind of communist, socialist things, so he is referred to. Everyone is referred to as comrades, and he's
the chairman.
What is the chairman? I was like, what is that word escaping me? They call him the chairman of their kind of chapter in Chicago.
And I forgot that they were like explicitly like kind of supporting Mao, because I forgot that was like a big thing in the 60s. Like I remember like in France and everything like that, there's like all these people that were kind of like pro Mao before he, went bad or whatever.
Oh, before the unpleasantness of killing millions and millions.
Right.
Yeah, so... Yeah, and it's perhaps not the best. It is interesting. I'm like starkly, I'm not a socialist. I don't really support communism. And it is interesting to see movies and to learn about characters and people of different viewpoints. I enjoy it. You know what I mean? So
that was the cool thing I thought about it. It also kind of like did a good job of like the best thing is like, I mean, I don't know how biased the movie is or not, but it is pretty well documented that the FBI was kind of doing some fucked up documentation, like Hoover in particular. So the stuff that they do highlight in this is pretty fucking terrible. So it's that's kind of like the thing that I liked about it, is it is really like and especially just having the whole thing be from Bill O'Neill's perspective. Like that's like I really loved Keith Stanfield in this. He carries the, like, both him and Kaluuya are both amazing, but just like the guilt that's on his face the whole time. He does such a good job of selling it too, because like a lot of times in movies when you have somebody that's like guilty and lying to people, like they telegraph it a little bit more than you would in real life, but in this it's like I would buy his story. But you do know that he's acting a little weird. Even in the scene where they like make him, there's a scene where he's like, once again, not going to go into detail on it, but he kind of has to hotwire a car in front of someone.
Sure.
And even that is kind of handled in a way that's like, okay, it's believable and everything.
Yeah, and just if you're like, we didn't watch this movie, you assholes. What is this about? Like, So it's just so Fred Hampton, played by Daniel Kaluuya, he's this very young chairman. He's 21 years old apparently in real life. The movie, the afterword at the end of the movie, you're watching Daniel Kaluuya. You assume he's like 40 something years old. He's this very enigmatic, charismatic speaker, a great orator. has a group of faithful attendees that are see him as, I mean, the movie is called Judas and the Black Messiah because Kaluuya's character is the FBI wants him removed and killed basically because they're worried about him being the Black Messiah. That's how enigmatic he is with his following and his ability to bring people together. So he is part of the Black Panther Party. And then you've got Lakeith Stanfield, who is a petty criminal who basically gets pulled over by an FBI agent named Roy something.
Roy Mitchell.
Roy Mitchell? Okay. Played by
our boy Jesse Plemons.
Our boy Jesse Plemons. And he says, hey, I will throw you in jail for impersonating an FBI agent. Because he was boosting cars. Yeah, he would walk into a bar. There's a scene, the opening scene basically. He will walk into a bar. He will get a bunch of guys, put their empty your pockets. He'll pretend to frisk you under the pretense that he's an FBI agent himself. He just dresses in an overcoat and a fedora, and he pulls it off. And he gets the car keys from people, and he just walks outside and starts stealing cars. So that's the opening scene. He steals a car. Jesse Plemons pulls him over and says, you're going to be, you work for me now. Otherwise, I'm going to put you in jail for like 7 years. For 5 for impersonating an officer and like 18 months for stealing a car. So he basically now owns Lakeith and says, I need you to go get close to Fred Hampton. So you are going to infiltrate the Black Panthers and you will report to me and you will aid in my investigation and we'll take it from there. So Lakeith is just kind of a petty criminal. In real life, is a guy named Bill O'Neill. And he just kind of worms his way tentatively through. I mean, you see him feeding kids, and he's not really a true believer. It takes him some time to fall in with them. There's a scene where he's kind of trying to spit some game on a fellow sister, which you just don't do. You know what I mean? You just don't do. So they punish him. They make him do some push-ups. It's kind of military-esque kind of a setup. Mm-hmm. And so from there, that's the plot of the film, right? So he is working on the inside, a lot of Departed vibes for me, you know what I mean? As someone who's kind of, walking that balance.
Yeah, like the fact that you have that whole irony where like it's not hidden at all. Like, from the get-go that like Bill is just there as the Judas. Like, they really is such an appropriate title because they really do make Kaluuya like seem kind of almost like saintly or Jesus-like or whatever, because he is like very just like like he never like they show multiple moments where he could be like could run and hide, or like he could like somehow give in to the cause or whatever, and he never does. Yeah, I really gotta say I like Jesse Plemons' character too, because he's not mustache twirling evil either. He's like
you could tell, yeah, he's getting squeezed.
Like he's uncomfortable with the stuff that he's being asked to do, but he's like a company man, so he'll do it. Like, yeah, like it's weird because Jesse Plemons, I feel like, plays that sort of character a lot, where he's like kind of the bad guy. Like, I was getting like Breaking Bad vibes, like like he's like the bad guy, but he kind of he's the relatable bad guy, like the good cop that's there to be your friend, but
right.
He's still ultimately telling you to do something terrible and fucked up or whatever.
I mean, my favorite cop role of him is it Date Night or Game Night, where he's the weird cop that lives down the street.
He's so good in that movie.
He kind of he taps into that a little bit, because he tries to kind of form a bond with Lakeith, but at the same time, he says, bro, if you step out of line, if I will end you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he basically will disown you or expose you as a rat, and there's it's made clear what the Black Panthers will do to someone they suspect to be an informant or a rat.
Yeah.
And so
like it's crazy how convoluted the informants are, and just like how many years they have, because like I can't even tell, because the whole thing takes place it's got to be over like a few years, right? Like
it must be a year or two or something like that.
Yeah, because he's like embedded with them like from the beginning for a while. So I don't just the fact that they like in real life got this guy so early on and kind of implanted him is freaking crazy or whatever.
I just found it wild that he's 21. Man. I was blown away by that.
And they show real footage of the guy, and like once again, props to them because. I didn't know anything of this real life historical event, but they have some file footage of shots that they recreated in the movie, and like the actors, like Daniel Kaluuya gives a speech, and then they show the speech given by the real guy at the end, and he got everything down verbatim. It seems like, but yeah, it's crazy that he was doing all this when he was like 21. Like, God, what were we doing?
No, I was not doing that. I was not leading freedom fighters or revolutionaries or fighting for social justice or anything.
Yeah.
I was not. I was puking in bars and colleges and all that good stuff. So. All right. Well, you got any final thoughts on it? I mean, it's an obvious watch for me. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know what the Oscars are going to do, but I mean, if you're this is one of those people aren't even gonna watch it and they'll vote for it. Like it's a safe. I mean? It's one of those. It's a safe.
It's like I'm curious. This Oscar year is gonna be weird because it's such a clear field. Like there's so many things that could be nominated, but I think just the fact that normally. I don't know. Like, I think just the fact that everything's on this disparate streaming platforms is really going to screw things up. So I'll be interested to see what makes it or what doesn't. But this seems like it's a pretty safe bet. And there's some things that are like quote unquote safe bets that I'm like kind of make me roll my eyes. But I actually did enjoy this one, so I would be fine.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
No, it's
a good Oscar-y kind of. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else this year that really scratched my itch in that department so far, and this is probably the one that fits most squarely in that category, so I definitely give it a recommendation.
Yep. Do you want to talk about Saint Maud? I didn't get a chance to see it, but it's been on my radar forever. You finally got a chance to see it. It's giving me like Worse Than Swallow vibes.
Yeah, in some parts. Swallow is a great comparison point. I was definitely thinking of Swallow when I was watching it a lot too. It's I can't. There isn't a ton to spoil because it's really more of a mood piece. But I'll make sure not to spoil anything. So I'll keep this brief. But this has been a movie that has been hyped up. For a strangely long time, even for, movies. Like, I feel like, you and I are always waiting for the next fucking Hereditary or something. Like, what is that next?
A24,
baby.
What's going to be what's going to be the next one?
Give me the next Lighthouse or whatever. And, it seems like right before the pandemic happened, this was kind of the one that was like definitely being kind of marketed as the next one of those. And then the pandemic happened and this thing got shelved for a year, and every other country on the planet pretty much got to see it before the US and everything. So it's finally available. I thought it was going to be available in the US, but like basically it wasn't. So I had to do this convoluted thing where I used my VPN to like make a dummy account in England to be able to rent it there or whatever. So it was a huge pain in the ass. But
how many pence did it cost?
Something like it's something like 5 or 6, but I don't know.
Oh my god!
What that translates.
How many
to.
p? Yeah. Do you remember? I don't remember how the money works. I remember. Is it Australia that has all the different size bills? Or England?
England has.
I didn't really use a lot of cash in England.
England has England's bills are weird because they're less rectangular. They're kind of more square because they're actually like made to fit in a billfold. Like you could actually.
Yes, I think you're right.
I think they're about the same size. The coins always get me. The coins.
The coins are. I'm like, this is the devil's work. The coins in England, and then. What else?
Dude,
I think they take credit card in England. Dude. In Australia, it's all cash. So you're like, you don't have. 18 Philly notes or whatever. I mean, it was insane. Everyone is a different size and color. I think they're designed for the blind or something. Dude, honestly, there's some.
That shit is made for dumb American tourists. I won't.
How many reds is it? Okay, I'll give you 4 reds and 1 yellow.
I literally saw somebody accidentally give away like $50 worth to like 2 homeless people, which was generous to him, but he thought he was giving away like $4, and it turned out he was giving away like $10 worth at a time or something like that.
It gets. I remember I was like partying in Halloween in England with a buddy of mine, and we were trying to like tip the cab driver, and we were like, which one of these is? Hold on, like what's a reasonable? Because
all this looks like Monopoly money, and also sometimes they don't like you to tip, which is weird. You know what I mean? Like you can tip, but it's actually looked upon as being strange.
In Australia, they don't want you. Yeah. They apparently tipping is not a thing in Australia, and neither is service at a restaurant. Oh. So it goes hand in hand as you wait there 18 years for a refill on your water. So yeah, good times.
This is our podcast where we air our grievances about Australia.
Fuck you, Australia. If you want to get into it, I'll talk about the 2067, that Australian movie. We're not done with Saint Maud, but let me just quickly say, the Australian factor, it looms large in that shitty movie. I watched that a couple days ago, and just, you couldn't get the Australianness out of it. And I support this. The Australian people are beautiful. But it is, do not cast a guy who looks like a surfer bum bro as like the head scientist.
Is that Cody Schmidt McPhee, the kid?
I don't know.
The kid
bro.
From.
No. The kid from Ender's Game is fine, but his dad, it looks like a Australian version of what's his name from Jaws and Dreyfuss.
Oh.
He looks like an Australian version of Richard Dreyfuss, but younger and more like Australian.
Does he have like a puka
bro.
Shell necklace? Isn't that? But that's like the Australian, national outfit, right? Everyone's got.
I mean, it's just. I was like, it's just the most I understand if you want to put an Australian in that role. I understand, but man, you guys could not have found a worse dude to make me believe this is an actual scientist. Not only a scientist, but a scientist that is doing incredible work to save humanity. No, dude. Just simply no. You have failed.
Okay, I want to honestly hear the rest about this 2067 movie because I've heard
it's just the worst.
Like,
it's just.
I saw the trailer for it and I was like, so what is it? They're in the future, but they have to go to the farther future to prevent Armageddon, right? Something like that.
It is the most convoluted plot. It has the guy from True Blood in it. Apparently, he's Australian, but they don't. But he's not playing Australian in the movie. The plot makes no sense. It looks bad. Ash tapped out real quick and was like, "This looks really bad." I showed her the trailer for Judas and the Black Messiah or this. She goes, "Let's do this one." So we go, "Okay, no problem." Like, I got to watch them all. So I don't care what order we do it in. And it was just within 10 minutes. It's just it looks cool. It's in, like they did the street scenes are interesting, but man, you're just like, ugh, God, the what people are predicting our futures to be like due to global warming and the air and everything, and just, oh God, I hope I'm long dead before any of these scenarios come into play. You know what I mean?
It's like definitely like, ooh, yay, we get to live underground. It really is that, 12 Monkeys future.
No, I mean, yeah, at least, and, we'll talk about Space Sweepers, but at least Space Sweepers was working on a, some sort of a improvement.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, hey, let's take this up into space and let's go to Mars.
Yeah.
Like, we're not just going to sit here and die and wallow and shit.
Well, somewhere, yeah, we're not all
completely
immediately screwed or whatever. It's kind of sad because that's kind of like future, like fiction. Like, it's rare that you see optimistic, like Star Trek future fiction now. It feels like it's either like dystopian future A, dystopian future B, or Armageddon dystopian future, like Mad Max stuff.
And none of it was incredibly original. Like, I've seen other movies where it's like, there is no like, you go to the bar and it's for oxygen, or like you've got street peddlers who are, hey man, I've got the best oxygen on the street block, bruh. Or people getting stabbed for their like little bits of oxygen and things like. I mean, and that's just that's what the reality of this movie was like. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. To me, it was just, it's worse than whenever it's air and oxygen. It's Spaceballs, making fun of it and stuff like that. But this is, to me, man, it's just, please kill me. Please just get me out of here before this happens. Where air is a purchasable commodity, the biggest company in the world, the Apple of this time is just the air producing company and stuff. And they got to go into the future and then, hope that someone in the past that they can bring back. And then the third act is just just a nightmare of just please let this be over soon.
like,
Why isn't this over? Did you watch? Have you seen this?
No, I saw the trailer and I'm still confused. If the world's ending, why do they have to go to the future after the world ended to get the thing that's going to prevent the world?
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like it seems like
nothing makes sense. You're sitting there going like, what is happening? What do they do? It's way too long. It's awful, dude. It's awful. Just don't watch it. I mean, it's on Hulu. If you're a masochist and you just want to, waste 2 hours, go for it. Just being depressed. It is just, yeah.
You gotta support that Cody Schmidt McPhee's career, man. He's that
poor kid. He's swinging a mist on this one. Yep. I don't know. Is he Australian and that's why he felt like he had to do it, do a home down discount?
I guess so. Yeah, maybe you get tax breaks or something like that. Who knows?
They went and they got. I mean, the woman, some evil woman in charge. I mean, they couldn't have cast it worse. She didn't give me any of the vibes that you're.
Like across the board, like I said, I saw a trailer I was half paying attention to like 6 months ago, but it seemed like 90% of this movie was filmed on a green screen, like badly too.
Oh yeah.
Like so.
Oh no. It looks like Clone Wars.
Yeah,
I mean, it's, you know what I mean? It's like certain parts of the scenes where you can do a good set, like Blade Runner set, crowded, gross streets. Those things you can do. But man, once it was like, here's my, the evil headquarters of this and that. I mean, it looks horrible.
Yeah, and boilerplate, whatever, dystopian future bullshit. Well, that's cool. I'm glad you saved me. I think I texted you this, but thanks for saving me a viewing because I might have given that a try when I was like half asleep at 2 a.m. on one weekend or something like that. But I think I'll avoid it now.
All right. Well. Are we done with Saint Maud? How do you feel about it? Give me back into the Saint Maud vibes. So let me forget about this.
Yeah, to wipe the slate clean. I won't go too much into spoilers, but yeah, Saint Maud's kind of been this thing that's been built up by A24 for the last few months. I would say, it definitely, I think it lives.
Give me a quick plot rundown. It's about like a woman working as like an aide for a dying woman or something. Is that what's happening?
The titular Maud is played by Moyford Clark, and she's fantastic. She's like the gravitational center of the movie. The entire thing, like the real cool thing about this movie is it's all squarely locked in Maud's perspective, and it's basically, it starts out, Maud is a kind of at-home nurse caregiver or whatever, and she's very, very clearly like super mousy, pretty religious, and kind of shut off from people and kind of scared of people. And she's in, I think, someplace like some crappy little town in England, like not London proper, I think, just like somewhere in the countryside or something like that. And there's like bars and there's like gambling places and everything like that.
There's bars and gambling everywhere. Let's talk about Australia and the gambling. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
The gambling. Let me just say, I don't want America to turn into what Australia is for gambling and drinking. It is on another level.
It is crazy
London
how
too.
It's like there's just like gambling parlors.
You
everywhere.
can gamble on like
it's like Chuck E.
gopher
Cheese for
races
adults.
in Burger King.
Yeah.
It is. It's kind of gross. It's like, imagine if rednecks just basically took over everything.
Well, it's also everything's got to smell like an ashtray. Like everything is like,
God.
It's like, I feel like the health inspector comes by and is like, nope, not covered in enough, dust, or whatever. But anyways, we digress. So Saint Maud takes place in England, I'm pretty sure. And so basically most of the plot is, hinges around Maud gets reassigned to help a new patient one day who's Amanda, who's played by Jennifer Eel, who's she's like a character actress that's like really great in this, and she's been in a bunch of other things. Like she's the friend in Zero Dark 30 that's spoilers for a 10-year-old movie, but she gets like blown up in the lobby. I bet a lot of people have binged Contagion recently. She's the doctor in Contagion that comes up with the vaccine. Once again, spoilers, but she comes up with the vaccine that injects herself, and she's like talking to her dad at the end and everything like that. So anyway, so she's really good. So her whole thing is she's a patient that's dying of some sort of like, it's like spinal lymphoma. It's like some sort of terminal kind of cancer sort of thing. And so they do a really good job of kind of like building up these two characters. Like you kind of get to infer a lot about them without like them having to spell it out. You kind of get the idea that Amanda is this American dancer, like avant-garde dancer that used to party with a bunch of like artists and everything like that, and now ever since she's like got this terminal illness, she's kind of like bitter and alcoholic and kind of hanging out by herself. And Maud and Amanda kind of form a bond a little bit over time. And Amanda, or Maud, because she probably doesn't have any attachments in her life, she seems to get attached very quickly. And you know, the one real running monologue you hear a lot is Maud's like prayers to God, basically, where you kind of get like a little peek into her internal thought process and everything like that. And long story short is Maud decides that it's her mission to make Amanda, who doesn't believe in God, like a believer before her time comes to die and everything like that. And that kind of propels the movie into like a very dark, messed up area as Maud kind of becomes more obsessed with this. And you don't know much about Maud at the start, and then you kind of find out a little bit more about her past and kind of about her mental state, because like I said, since you're always locked into Maud's perspective, like she does things that you know are weird. Like normally in another movie you would cut away to somebody else's perspective, so you kind of get them like looking at their friend like askance or whatever. But in this, it's like you see them do that, but it's still from Maud's perspective staring at them, and you can tell she doesn't pick up on things like that. And then there's other things too where it kind of starts, the things get crazier and weird and dark and kind of hallucinatory, and it kind of has this whole thing where you don't know what's going on. Is Maud crazy, or is she getting divine messages to do things? And yeah, if you've seen the trailer, she ends up going to these great lengths that are very painful to look at. And I gotta hand it to Rose Glass, who wrote and directed this, does a really, really great job with the sound design, and the way it's shot is fucking gorgeous. The performances are great. Like you said, I think what is it, Swallow is a very good comparison point, because I got very much Swallow vibes, where it's not really too gratuitous ever, but they do a lot. They get a lot of mileage from implying things with the sound design and the way things are shot, and just kind of building up tension that way.
Because there's a lot of like self-harm, reflect, like, what is it called? I mean, we went to Catholic school. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but a lot of like saints and priests and monks.
It's like self-flagellation.
They'd like whip themselves.
And there's things. There's allusions to, like, I always remember we'd learn about. I forgot which saint. I guess it was like Saint Francis. It's like it's a ecclesiastic something. It's like where you get so excited that you basically levitate. Like they have call outs to things like that in this. So our Catholic school kind of background is good to it. Yeah, there's one thing, it's in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler, but she's got this whole thing where she's got like Chuck Taylors, and she gets like a little pamphlet with Jesus's face on it and puts a bunch of tacks through it and just like slips that into her Chuck Taylors and just walks around. Like that's the thing too, is like, the undercurrent throughout this entire thing is like she is like wholeheartedly, like she's basically almost like kind of treating like herself as like you would have as a saint. Like she keeps on talking about like how, and this reminds me of things I used to hear when we were in school, is like, oh yeah, I remember being filled with Jesus, and it's like the spiritual rapture or whatever. But for her it's like clearly sexual. It's like so like this whole thing where like she's like torturing herself and everything like that, there's like clearly a sexual component to it. And they do this really great stuff where they use just a little bit of digital effects, and just enough to like make you hint at something that's like weird or off-putting, but like it cuts away before you really get a chance to process it. And it does that trick a few times, and it even kind of uses it for a button at the end of the movie that I think is really good, that I won't go into. But yeah, so I definitely really recommend it. I would say, don't Lost in Translation this. Like, don't, like, I know this is a movie, like, I hate it when, like, or The Lighthouse is probably another good example. Like, sometimes when a movie is small and gets a lot of buzz and gets a lot of buzz for a while, like, people get expectations of it that are too, mountainous to surmount or whatever. But this is a good, weird A24 little type of movie, and so if that's your jam, I don't think this will disappoint. It did not disappoint for me.
Let's talk about a movie that we both really, really enjoyed. Bliss on Amazon Prime. Of course, I'm joking. I don't know. Did you like it? I thought it was horrible.
Really? I thought it was okay.
Well, I thought the third act ruined the whole thing.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, it was.
Well, it's an interesting premise, but to me, it just really just I don't know. It kind of. And it basically, a gentleman. It was to me. It was good to see Owen Wilson back amongst the living.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
acting again, it's crazy. Especially in like, he was kind of doing older dad roles before he disappeared, but like now he's firmly in that, like, a gray haired.
I agree. It was a little bit weird to see him be like a teenage, a dad of a teenager, not only, but like an older teenager, not like a
college
not like a 12-year-old,
basically. I think.
Right. Yeah, and I was like, oh man, I guess you're right. Like the Wedding Crasher days and the Zoolander days,
those are
long gone.
Yeah, the
man.
last time I think I saw him, he was in what was that Jason Sudeikis movie, the Hall Pass? That's like the last time he's been in things since then, but like I was like, okay, that was close to 10 years ago, so he had a family in that, and I guess those kids would be in college now. Like he kind of like based actors' age kind of on previous roles like that, so it's not inaccurate. It just makes us feel old, I guess, right?
Right. I mean, it's weird. I mean, he's had probably some well documented struggles, and it's just so weird for a guy that we kind of assume has the world by the balls, you know what I mean? Of just, good looking dude, funny, movie star, and he's had his real struggles. And so this is an interesting movie, knowing kind of some of those things, and then watching him be in this kind of depressing, weird role that is very non-Owen Wilson-like. You know what I mean? He's gone and done some of his stuff. He's going to go back to do the quirky stuff with the French Dispatch that's coming out, I think, later this year or next year. But like, this is probably one of the more darker movies I've seen of him in. And just to kind of give you a quick rundown of what the movie's basically about, is that Owen Wilson plays this guy who seems to be kind of middle management at some sort of tech support corporate job. He seems distracted. He's going through a divorce. He's on some sort of medication. It's not really clear. There's just the opening scene is him trying to kind of do a refill. He doesn't seem incredibly worried about his work and his job, but he seems to be falling behind.
He's drawing he gets called into specific drawings of a specific. He has like a dream place that he keeps on dreaming of, and it's all incredibly specific. Like, this is this house, and like here's the hotel it's in, and here's the name of the hotel, and the observatory near, and the bay, and the woman. He keeps on seeing the same woman appear, that he can't stop drawing, who looks a little suspiciously like Salma Hayek.
Well, there you go. It could be. You could do worse than drawing on the Salma. It
definitely looks like a drawing and not like a bad Photoshop of Salma. Like a filter or whatever. Too.
It looks like an Instagram filter. Yeah. So he gets called in by his boss. His boss says, "Hey, you're kind of slacking. You're failing." Boss, fires him, and he, a couple things end up happening. He goes to a bar. He meets Salma Hayek. Salma Hayek is alone by herself, kind of grabbing a drink or whatever. They kind of get to talking, and Salma Hayek just goes, "Oh, you're real. You're a real person." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" Of course, And she starts explaining how they are living in some sort of simulation, that most people here aren't real. There's a few people, and they kind of build this friendship. She says, "Go into the bathroom, and I need you to get these, get my necklace, which has some weird crystals in it, and then those crystals allow them to do some, a weird, by the looks of it, kind of telekinesis, magic power type stuff. And then, it kind of goes from there where they're kind of running around together, almost becoming weirdly homeless because Salma Hayek is basically living.
Salma Hayek is basically like a homeless, Salma Hayek looks like she's about to go to Burning Man or something like that. She's like that witchy kind of homeless hippie vibe.
Right. And to me, it's weird because I live I live outside Los Angeles and I'm in Southern California, and the homelessness is just it's just wild. It's on another level. I've lived all over. I've lived on the East Coast, New York, DC, you name it. And it's the NFL of homelessness out here. You know what I mean? It is major league homelessness.
I think this movie takes place because there's a point where Ross and I paused it and I think Owen Wilson writes down Salma Hayek's number and it's a 301 number, isn't that California or something? LA?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of the area codes because I know are 703 or whatever. I know some of the New York ones are like 201 maybe. I don't know. I've always just had my cell phone number. I've never gotten a new phone number.
Right.
But I'm not sure.
But it is weird because it's it doesn't ever explicitly say where it takes place. And I kind of got the vibe that it was near future, kind of like that vague, almost Black Mirror kind of thing where it's this is familiar, but there's some things that are different. But if I had to place it somewhere, I guess I was assuming LA or someplace, specifically because it's got a noted homeless issue and everything.
Yeah, no, but I don't know how deep to go. If you're interested in this
is a hard one to not talk about with spoilers. It's also weird because the trailer gives away a lot. Because you're trying to go, I would say if you're interested in the premise, just watch this movie because the trailer literally has a bunch of stuff in it from the third act, and it's also stuff that I was trying to figure out, had I not seen the trailer, would I have known it was going that direction? It would probably be better if you go in unsullied, though, if you are interested in this.
Yeah, the less you know, the better. But yeah, it's a weird movie to review because the ending, the second half of the movie is really hinging on a few different premises that are explained that
kind
basically,
of explained.
Well, sort of, yeah. So it's I don't know how much we want to get into it, but basically the idea of shaping someone's consciousness by simulations and what is real and what isn't, and if you could could you improve the quality of someone's life and make someone a better person by exposing them to realities that may or may not be happening, and create a more, a better population of humans, because you're basically putting them through experiences that they wouldn't ordinarily experience. And then in so doing, creating a more, a better, more well-rounded person. And I guess that is an interesting concept to base a movie around. And then it just completely fails that point for me. The third act is just a nightmare.
So the thing is, can we just say spoilers at this point going forward?
Yeah, if you were just gonna
So basically, that's not even what I really feel like the movie's about. The whole thing I feel is this guy just a drug addict who's hallucinating all this stuff, or is he actually in a simulation or whatever? Because I feel you hear of all these stories of people coming off of some sort of hardcore drug, meth or something like that, and you think everything's a simulation, and you think it's that whole philosophical brain in a vat sort of thing. How would you be able to tell if you were always in a simulation? And it's that whole thing. The thing where the movie is interesting is it kind of gives you evidence to each side, so it's kind of hard to come down on one side. It seems very likely, all the things that Salma Hayek seems to be saying are crazy, but then there are all these points where it seems like there's evidence to back her up. For instance, when Owen Wilson first runs into her in the bar, she has magic matrix powers where she can move things with her mind and shit. You assume okay, maybe there's something there, but I always kind of read it as okay, this whole movie is even if it's not explicitly about it, it feels like it's kind of supposed to be about people's struggles with drug addiction, especially the opioid epidemic in America and everything like that. So it's like, I think that's the most interesting thing, because if you're an addict or you're kind of going through some mental issues, you don't know, when you're in it, right? Like you think that you're, everyone else is against you or whatever, or everyone else is part of the simulation, and this drug or whatever is the only way to see through it. So like, yeah, it felt like the way they were playing everything, like all the especially all the stuff with the kids, like the daughter in particular, like I liked that, the emotional part, like, you really could feel, I felt for that character, because this is going to be so rough to like just watch your parent go through that stuff, and just see them kind of like shift from like drift down to the dregs of society and everything like that.
It is wild. You're a couple zigs and a zags away from basically just living on the streets. And that's kind of what, it's weird how Owen Wilson has 2 children. He's divorced from his wife. It sounds like he, was always kind of, complaining about, oh, I've got an injury, I need pills for that, or I've got my knee hurts. And one of the, he has a daughter and a son, and the son has basically kind of just given up on him, cut him out, doesn't accept his calls, whatever. The daughter is desperate to kind of keep him up and posted and moving, and wants him to attend family functions and things like that. But yeah, he's kind of basically checked himself out from life, and there's scenes where they kind of run into each other, where he's obviously kind of living on the street, and the daughter kind of can't believe it, and he kind of plays it off like he's just waiting for a friend real quick, who's Selma Hayek, who's trying to buy drugs. Like,
yeah, that seems
it's like
so
a whole yeah. So there's a lot of weird stuff. I mean, there's they form a very quick, tight relationship that looks very manic, like drug users would have.
That was totally, like, I feel like, and I gotta give a shout out to Salma Hayek. I did actually think she was A, very good in this, B, gorgeous. I'm still like amazed that she's in her 50s.
She's got to be 80 years old. I don't know, but she's still rocking it. And I mean, there's scenes where, because I've seen it on Reddit, they love this scene where she leans into a car, because she's basically playing a woman who is basically turning tricks for money or cash or whatever. She'll like pull her shirt down, lean over, talking to a John, climbs into his car, while Owen Wilson's sitting there with, old expired food from a Popeyes. Kind of a thing, and waiting for her to come back, and that's just his existence. He's just sitting on a milk box, waiting for Selma Hayek to finish up, and then come back and eat a cold chicken sandwich.
But like, that's the thing I liked about this, because like, I feel like, just once again, perspective is so important in movies like this. Like, I feel like I've met these people, you know what I mean? And I feel like just getting a view into like maybe what some of their like what they're experiencing is kind of like the most interesting part of the movie. But it also is weird, because like towards the end, when it becomes really vague what's going on, like it really tries to muddle like what is reality, what is the simulation, what's the simulation within the simulation. It kind of doesn't make sense. Like, there's the whole thing where the stuff that kind of puts that action of the movie in motion is this dude's boss. Like, he accidentally kills his boss when he's getting fired in the beginning of the movie, and then he finds out in the third act that the boss was never dead to begin with. So I was like, was he just hallucinating all of that? Like, it's hard to parse, because you're stuck in Owen Wilson's like kind of weird, messed up, drug-addled perspective. Like, what is reality?
Like, does he suffer a psychotic break in the boss's office, because he's kind of been let go? Yeah. And you're not processing at that point. Like, I've been fired a number of times, and I remember going, like, not processing it in the moment. Like, you're literally just been like,
kind of zoom.
Yeah, totally. Where you're just
distant glance.
You just hear like a tone buzzing in your ears as you're like thinking about your life. Yeah. And I was like, I wonder if that's what he's talking about at this moment. You know what I mean? If he's just going through this, because the boss is like, hey, did you hear me? Hey, are you listening to me?
Yeah. Like, maybe he just kind of zoned out that entire meeting, and then eventually did leave or something like that.
Yeah, right. Like it's one of those you ever drive on the highway and you think like in another dimension I crashed into that median wall.
Yeah. Totally.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, oh shit.
Like you could just,
am I alive right now?
Yeah, like you just catch yourself
I
like
always have
going
that thought.
way down the rabbit hole of like, you know, like, oh, this leads to this, which leads to this, and yeah.
Right. Yeah, like, ooh, that was a close call.
Yeah.
Like in another dimension.
Yeah.
I didn't see that guy like in my blind spot.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I don't
so
have
I'm
any legs
like,
or whatever. You know.
well, I don't get that dark.
Yeah.
But, I just hope I die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're just gone. But yeah, no, I think about that all the time. Of like how many of these weird, you know, little zigzags.
Yeah, could have led you.
You know, can
which you choose the
Yeah.
adventure story leads you to your doom or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. But I, if we're going full in, I really didn't like the whole like weird utopian science, weird society thing with Bill Nye.
Yes, I forgot he
you
was
know,
in
and
that.
you know, it really. I was like, what is this? Like, there's some, you know, they're living in like Saint-Tropez or some tropical Greek island where it's all just academics and scientists, and they're like, you know, I was like, this is some weird, insane nonsense version of what we all think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's like,
well, so the question is, was that the point? Because I never for a second was like, felt any tension like, oh, is this the real world actually? You know, is Salma Hayek right and not some crazy, you know, homeless lady or whatever? And I just never had that, you know, I never bought into that because it was so obvious that this utopian society is like too utopian to be realistic at all. But I guess that's the thing. Like, that's the thing is like, you know, that kind of just all led into my read. Like, I read it strictly as like, this is a drug addicted person's, you know, perspective of the world. And if you're, you know, messed up on drugs and you come up with some weird ass Philip K. Dick alternate reality that would make for a good bad sci-fi novel maybe or something like that.
totally. No, I agree. It definitely gives you that weird Philip K. Dick. What was his crazy book where he's hallucinating and thinks he's talking to God? I'm trying to remember. I read it, but
man.
Anyway,
man,
there's
so
a lot.
many.
Oh yeah, I don't, you know. But anyway, speaking of mental illness, which way do you want to go? You want to go talk about Britney Spears, or do you want to talk about the Cecil Hotel?
Ooh, I'm curious about this. I want to hear about both, but tell me about this Britney flick because I was interested in it, and I tried so hard to find this damn movie on Hulu, and I did not succeed. So you're just gonna have to give me the plot synopsis.
Yeah, Hulu has the anti-business model where like Hulu's search interface is the worst of any of them. I have them all. Tubi will blow you out of the water. Hulu. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know who is running your user experience stuff. But you're garbage. You're garbage. They suck. Like I think I searched Britney Spears in Hulu and it didn't come up. I only found it because it was boom on my homepage, and it's the New York Times Presents is what the show is called. So if you do not know that and you're just like, what's that Britney Spears show I won't watch? You can't find it. You just can't. Maybe we're idiots. I don't know. But like, figure it out, Hulu. Get your shit together. Britney Spears, man, love me some Britney. Free Britney, y'all. You know what I mean? I'm in complete support. Been a big Britney Spears fan since I was knee high to a grasshopper. You know, if you will. You know, very formative years of Britney fandom. You know what I mean? Man, it's sad to watch. It's sad because it just, you see how you could basically drive someone insane by a few different mechanisms of just insane notoriety at a young age, money, media scrutiny, just tearing her ass apart over every little thing. And it started with, you know, Baby One More Time, you know, that video, the slut shaming. It was wild because you were like, oh shit. I mean, in 2020, 2021, I mean, I think President Kylie Jenner is gonna happen eventually. You know what I mean? She's literally a billionaire, right? But if, you know, 1998 and 9, when was that Baby One More Time? 99?
That was 99.
Something like that. Man, they were coming out.
Yeah.
They were, you know, the Mothers of America against Britney Spears or something. You know what I mean? So it was a wild time. You'd never see it now. Now they're like, oh, wow. Like, we're putting you in the Instagram Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is,
you know what I mean?
You know, they would give you an award for chasteness or whatever.
Yeah, where do I sign up for your OnlyFans?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like you'd be incredible. So, but that weighed in on her. You know what I mean? Just a good old girl from Louisiana. You know what I mean? Trying to do her thing. Seemed like she had a really unstable, weird relationship with her father. Doesn't help matters. She had really high-profile relationships with other insane, high-profile people. She, made some mistakes. They really, really hammered home how much paparazzi were literally just... And I thought the Princess Diana laws had kind of cleaned some of that up. I think maybe in England and the UK they have.
Yeah, but in the US
damn,
it was
they don't
its
give
own
a
thing. And
no.
You and I, like right before we started recording this podcast, we were talking about how someone like Ben Affleck, like poor dude's getting hammered by the paparazzi, can't get a break,
Sure.
and how granted, yes, they are millionaires and you're famous and all that other stuff, but like it is rough when all you want to do is get a cup of coffee down the street and you can't even trip and stumble without it making national news. And everything like that. So yeah, I could totally see, especially if you're, coming into adulthood in a national spotlight, like, yeah, that's enough to drive anyone insane, especially if, they're trying to make you look like you are,
But it's interesting because they have a ton of clips and they even talk to some of the paparazzi who are literally just assigned to her, basically. Like, I'm a parasite. Where you don't really I would argue that Britney doesn't benefit from you taking pictures of her in a gas station, right? So I think your relationship it's not what is it when there's I'm trying to remember the term, but there's no real benefit both ways.
Yeah.
Right? You're literally just preying on this poor
It's not
girl.
symbiotic, it's parasitic.
It's not symbiotic, it's parasitic. And so, they really do show through video clips of where, she was cordial, she was kind of polite at first, she was like wave, and they make a point to point out that she wasn't always, shaving her head and destroying paparazzi cars with umbrellas like she's infamously shown for doing. Like it was a descent into madness based on years and years of this.
And
right?
that was like her breaking point, right? Like that was
totally.
Was that post-divorce?
So she's post-divorce, and she's just trying to see her kids. She doesn't have any visitation. The dude, Kevin Federline, is holding her kids, and they're in a home or something, and denying her, like, won't buzz her in through the gate. So they back out. They go to a gas station, and then they confront them, and that's when she has the meltdown where she's bald, and she's taking an umbrella, and she's destroying a paparazzi guy's truck, and you feel bad for her. How bad can you feel for like a world famous, incredibly talented, beautiful white woman in America? But you do. You feel bad. You know what I mean? So she's gone through a lot. You know what I mean? We wish her nothing but the best. Free Britney. I think they're working on her conservatorship. I think I see some stuff in the news. Her dad got unapproved to manage her investments or something. But that dude...
Does the movie go into that sort of stuff? Like, since it's developing, like, does it kind of towards the end be like, hey, this is...
Yeah, totally. It's wild because you typically have conservatorships over elderly people who cannot manage their own finances or are in grave danger of being fraudulently basically taken advantage of.
It's
like
to say that
sending the Nigerian princes like you're
right. Like they're basically saying you're not mentally capable.
You're
of
not
handling
competent.
Your own finances, which is
right.
But that's pretty messed up. How old is Britney now? She's like 40.
She's
maybe.
I don't think she's even quite that old. But the reality is, it becomes very clear that her dad and like another lawyer guy are basically just using this to enrich themselves and just siphon money to themselves by controlling her, right? And so it's like she's incompetent enough to have the conservatorship, but she's not incompetent enough not to have like a Las Vegas residency and perform every night or whatever, right? So how do those two things align where you can have someone who she's not institutionalized? You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's allowed to go out and make money as long as she's not in charge of that money.
Yes. And by the way, I think they said like, her dad is in charge of her $60 million estate. And I went, what? How is Britney Spears only worth $60 million?
I know, that seems very low.
That's very low. I mean, can you imagine,
I was
like,
expecting
for how
at least
big of a
triple
star?
digits, for something.
Dude, I mean, I was like, let me Google real quick. I like 2019. I'm not looking at 2020 numbers because obviously the apocalypse. But in 2019, Taylor Swift, who is a unicorn of herself, she made 185 million pre-tax.
Right.
Beyonce made 81. Rihanna made 62. Ariana Grande made 48. Katy Perry made 57 million. That was just the calendar year, right? So like, Britney Spears was the biggest star in the world for years, and she only has 60 million to put a pot to piss in. Like, where did all her money go?
I guess it's like one of those things because all she's been doing is those Vegas shows for like the last 10 years, right? So maybe
that was only recently. I mean, but she was out there putting out albums, bro. This was a time.
That's the thing is I haven't followed anything she's done aside. Like, it's like
you're not buying those albums.
Well, it's like weird because it's like at a certain point, like certain celebrities like almost transcend whatever they initially got famous for and just became your local TMZ embarrassing photo of the week. You know what I mean? So like, yeah,
but she was making money when they were buying CDs, when girls were out there actually buying CDs.
Totally. But like, I mean, in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, maybe she's dropped some stuff every once in a while, but it seemed like usually I think once you're doing a conservatorship in Vegas or whatever it's called, like, you're probably...
that's the residency.
Yeah, residency. Yeah, sorry. Once you're doing a residency in Vegas, you're probably not touring anywhere else. You know what I mean? That's usually when you're kind of settling into almost like diva retirement. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, maybe. I mean, Celine Dion is making money out
there.
But
that's
bro.
the thing.
I think
you don't have to try.
Gwen Stefani did it. Like, they're not all washed up.
Well, it's not being washed up, but it's like when you reach a certain level of fame and you kind of want to say like, hey, I don't want to try too hard. It's like finding a nice sitcom to settle into if you're a famous actor. Where you don't have to try too hard, but you get consistent work and people still know your name and everything like that. So that's...
I don't know, man. I think they would think of that as the pot at the end of the rainbow.
Right.
Imagine not having to take a dump in your tour bus. Like, you don't have to do the traveling.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the years of traveling weighs in on them. Now you're like Chris Angel Mind Freak or your Carrot Top, and you just live in some like the Bellagio, president's suite or something. Like, dude, that's a cherry gig. I don't think it's quite as shitty as
no, I don't mean as a bad thing, but like, no, I agree. I think when you're basically like, hey, I'm getting kind of tired of touring, or I'm getting older and I just don't want to have to put up with this sort of shit. Like, yeah, you find a spot to go to and you have the crowds come to you. You don't go to them, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people would kill for that kind of situation, but yeah. Anyway, man, it's weird and sad.
So
and
she have like lots of back taxes, or what? Is she like a
dude? I didn't know what the deal was because she basically she agreed to do a new residency kind of concert, something or other. They showed kind of her at the press conference, and then she basically just canceled it and said, like, I'm not working until this is all
sorted out.
Done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna work for other people, because the lawyer guy was petitioning the judge in the case for a raise.
Oh, wow.
And saying that, hey, she does so much work that it's a lot of work for me to have to do, so I deserve a raise. And they're like, well, if she's fit to work a ton and make you guys a lot of money, then why isn't she fit to like run her finances? Right. And she didn't even want to do it personally. All she wanted was
to be able to hire
my dad not to do it. Yeah, she wanted a bank to do it. She was like, I want a bank to be running my affairs and my money and money managing. It's no different than anyone else in entertainment that has like a finance manager or something, right?
Hasn't she been?
That's all she wanted. She just didn't want her daddy to.
Well,
do it.
Hasn't she been trying to get free from him for decades?
She's been trying to get free.
Like
free
even
Britney.
even before the Free Britney thing, like even when she was like younger, like way younger, like when she was still with Kevin Federline, I thought I remembered seeing her dad pop up in tabloids being a piece of shit or something.
Yeah, so I think they signed. So, I believe the conservatorship, she's not even responsible for her own medical care. Like, she doesn't make her medical care decisions.
Damn.
So if they're like, hey, we're going to try a new medication, that's not up to her.
Damn.
Like, it is that legit.
That sucks.
So, and I think her episodes and how, so it's a 90-minute documentary. I don't know if I'd call it a movie or whatever, but the piece paints a perfect portrait of how the media and the paparazzi and the media and Diane Sawyer and kind of how they shaped this vision of her and what sold tabloids of crazy Britney sells, man. So give me more, give me more, give me more. And it kind of became this thing where even the judges and stuff were like, yeah, she's clearly crazy. So I guess you guys are, you really do need to protect her by taking care of her, and she can't see her children. And she agreed to some of this stuff early on because she thought if she agreed to it, if she gave them an inch, she'd be able to see her kids more and do this and do that. If she conceded, she would get more out of it, but really they took a mile. You know what I mean? So she just, basically, it's a very interesting, well done thing about how a machine just switched when all this happened. Her best friend Felicia, who was like her, a confidant, hairdresser, like
was she
chaperone,
one that, like,
basically
leaked shit to the press or something, right?
No, like she's. I don't think she did anything malicious towards her. Okay. It sounds like, she was just basically, once her dad kind of got the claws in and ran everything, she was basically just hired to be like give tours of like her concerts. Like they basically just removed her. You know what I mean? They were like, yeah, we're just gonna you're no longer necessary. Wow. You know what I mean? So this poor lady who just spent her entire life traveling around with Britney Spears, getting her coffees and shit. But like really ended up being kind of one of her best friends. Now is just, chilling in a tiny little house. And,
relegated to being a tour guide, basically.
I don't know what she's doing now, but, she, super likable, fun, seemed like a great person. This is who you want to be kind of surrounding Britney Spears in her times of need. And it seemed like the machine kind of no longer would pay her to do that, and then therefore she kind of had to leave, and there you go. Damn. But damn, poor Britney. I mean, we honestly wish her the best. We've joked about it in the past with Zac Efron and stuff like that, but as with Zac, you know what I mean, we wish him nothing but the best. Britney, hang in there.
Yeah, you'll be free soon.
Yeah, we'll get you out of there. But yeah, keeping the mental awareness, mental illness train going. Did you see the Cecil Hotel? Do you know the Elisa Lam case? Do you know that whole thing?
So I started watching like the first 10 minutes of this, and then I had something come up. So I got, I hadn't heard, I think I heard of the Lisa Lam case like vaguely when it was going on, and then I saw like the kind of recap they did in the opening, but I didn't get any further into it than that. Because
I had known about this story for a couple of years, and then it kind of went away. But
so what's the thing with, okay, so she disappeared and then she showed up on video in this elevator like looking like a ghost? Is that the deal, or is that the
so there's a young girl from Canada. She lives in British Columbia, 21 years old, college student. She decides, hey, you know what, the daughter of two Chinese immigrants. I'm a student. I'm young. She has like a sister. She's like, I just want to get out there and travel a little bit. So she makes some plans. She travels to San Diego. She kind of wants to do the West Coast, so she's going from San Diego up to Los Angeles. Checks into the Cecil Hotel, which is, a LA landmark of downtown LA and Skid Row, as just being a perfect flop house. You know what I mean? Where it's got the super low income, cheap daily rents. It's where you could take a lady of the night for an hour. You know what I mean? Things like that. So it's like Times Square used to suck. It's basically if Times Square of the 70s was just in downtown LA, which never changed.
So like, if I'm following it right, like I'm getting this from the first 10 minutes, but it seemed like it used to be a very famous hotel, right? And it kind of has since fallen into disrepair, and then it was kind of notorious for being a spot where people who were visiting America from like foreign countries would come to stay because they thought they were staying in like a nice luxurious hotel. Yes. And then it would turn out to be this horrible flop house or whatever.
Yeah, basically, like in the, they do a great job of kind of running down the history of the hotel. It's old, man, but it was, obviously Skid Row was not really a thing I want to say it was built in like the late 20s, man. Wow. So it was like an early LA kind of icon. And then once the Depression hit, there were a lot of people who were basically just, it was like a old single man where I'm going to go live out and die, basically. Just live in the super cheaply and just kind of die here. And then from there, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, even the 90s, it became just a place where you would take prostitutes to go do drugs, to maybe to kill people. Like it's just a very cheap kind of rent controlled place. Like there's all these weird things where it has, in the infinite wisdom of Los Angeles County, it has all these rules about how much you can charge long-term residents. So it's had people that have lived in the hotel for like 30 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because it costs less per day than what an apartment would cost. Wow. You know what I mean? So you've got just there's been sections of the hotel forever that just have people who live there, right? For, who are basically homeless. You know what I mean? So you're living in just a absolute shithole hotel, but it also needs to be nice enough to attract kind of people. But the only people who don't really know about the Cecil Hotel are like well-meaning tourists and youth hostel kids and stuff.
So is it one of those deals where like you go on the website and it shows like pristine, like nice, ornate, like 1920s architectural design, and then you get there and there's like cockroaches and shit? Or
right. So they So they interview a couple from Europe who was there. They were like, oh, we want to go to to Los Angeles to hang out. And they go to the Cecil Hotel and they find like, oh, the carpet on the floor was so sticky. You're like peeling your feet off of it. It's actually a super well done documentary just on the history of this really weird, creepy hotel. I'm pretty sure it's the hotel that they based the American Horror Story hotel based on, where like, I know they have the H.H. Holmes whole murder hotel house thing wrapped up in there, but I'm pretty sure it's like a whole Cecil Hotel vibe. But like Richard Ramirez lived there, all kinds of stuff.
It's like a bunch of serial killers, like specifically, right? Like,
yep, they go into at least two in the show and talk about how they use the hotel as their base of operations to go do serial killing. Wow. And so anyway, this 21-year-old girl, she's bipolar. She's they go into a lot of different things, explaining what may have happened. But basically, this girl disappears. She's checked into the hotel. She's staying in one of the rooms. She disappears. It's a manhunt. You know what I mean? It's like a Canadian tourist, 21-year-old girl that's literally like, you can't be in Skid Row if you're that. You know what I mean? Like it's like a lamb to the slaughter kind of thing.
Right.
I'm not gonna go walk around Skid Row. Hell no. Let alone a 21-year-old Canadian, girl that's very, doesn't look like Gina Carano running around out there, you know what I mean?
So it also seemed like, once again, I'm inferring this from a small piece of what I saw, but it seemed like almost kind of like it seemed like the circumstances around the case were very suspicious. Like what she was doing out there in the first place and everything seemed kind of weird, right? Like, was she meeting up with a friend? Was that what her whole thing was?
I mean, people, I guess they weren't too, because they were relying a lot on her Tumblr posts and her blog posts, and it sounded like she just had an urge to travel, to get out from what seemed like kind of a controlling family. I don't know if Asian Chinese parents that maybe have been like, hey, hang out and study, very education driven. I don't know. And just to kind of, she wanted to just get out and travel. Like it's no different than anyone else. And so she kind of disappears. 19 days later, things start happening. There's no sign. They bring in dogs. They bring in everyone. They brought, it had like 20 investigators on the case. They were tearing the hotel apart. They thought she was in the hotel. They couldn't find any footage of her leaving the hotel. So they were convinced that she must be stashed in a hotel room closet, in a broom closet. She must be buried up, wrapped up somewhere. They don't know what's going on. So then residents start complaining of their water being a weird color, and it smells funny, and it tastes a little weird. And when they're like, why is this happening? What's going on? So they get enough complaints about the water that they go up to the roof and they look in the water reservoir tanks.
What?
And boom, she's just naked, just dead in there.
Oh my God.
She's just dead.
Wow.
And so they start going, well, how did she get in there? Did she get in there by herself? Did someone dump her in there? What's going on? So that's kind of, and then now the infamous elevator footage is really as much as I had kind of known from before I started watching, because I'd known enough about this case, because there's very infamous, creepy footage of her alone making erratic movements and behavior and kind of waving her arms around inside and directly outside of an elevator. And it looks very strange because she's kind of hiding inside the elevator and popping her head out, and she's standing outside and then comes back in. She starts hitting a lot of buttons on the elevator, and the door won't close, and people are, it's this huge mystery. Why isn't the elevator closing? What's going on? What's happening? Blah, blah, blah. And throughout the documentary, they kind of debunk a lot of things. People think there's ghosts on the outside that are pushing the buttons, keeping her there. They think that there's another person outside that's holding her now there and not letting her go. It looks like she's trying to avoid someone. It looks like she's scared of someone. It's a very weird, strange. You can Google it. You can find it on YouTube. But you would not look at that and say, like, oh, this person's she looks like she's having a great time. She either looks like she's mentally insane, or she's being possessed by ghosts, or being chased by ghosts, or something weird. So the documentary kind of goes into explaining a bunch of these things. It really does debunk a lot of things about why doesn't the elevator door close? Why doesn't this happen? What's going on? But it's a 4-hour kind of documentary series going into this, and there's so many.
Just this case, or does it go into the other Cecil Hotel murders? Is it like every episode's a different murder?
No. The whole Elisa Lam is the name of this woman. That is the center of the whole thing. It goes into great detail about other infamous, horrible things that have gone on at the hotel. It goes into the investigation with the police, all the conspiracy theory web sleuths that went out and tried to find evidence on their own, looking at, police reports and the forensics and the morgue, the things the medical examiner had released and all kinds of stuff. So it's really interesting. I mean, they dive into a bunch of different things. They dissected her Tumblr. She talked a lot about, being depressed and having antidepressants and being bipolar and being on medication. They went through her belongings. They tried to examine how much of her medication had she been taking. There's a lot. The most interesting, there were so many little interesting things, and there's a term for them. I think synchronicities. I'm trying to remember the term they use. They're not quite coincidences, but they're things that are connections that cannot be explained. They're not
necessarily evidence pointing to anything specifically,
right,
but they are weird things of note. Maybe, is that it?
Yes. I mean, they go into it, man. They were like, apparently the tuberculosis test is called a Lam Elisa, which is just her name
weird.
Backwards. And at the time she was there was a huge tuberculosis outbreak among the homeless that were in downtown LA on Skid Row, right outside of the hotel. Her college in British Columbia, where she studied, has a huge tuberculosis lab. It's like a specialty of theirs.
Weird.
Right? So there's all these weird coincidences. Like, they took they took like the man, I'm trying to remember. There was some code that they took that they found somewhere relating to her, and then it was like the zip code of her small town or something in British Columbia. There were all these really weird connections that really can't be explained away, because they had like real no shit journalists trying to figure out, like, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in anything. Like, I want to figure out what actually happens, and how did this happen? And they were like, yeah, these things are weird. There's no real explanation of why this would happen and that would happen and stuff like that. They have like, the old general manager who worked there for like 10 years, kind of this poor lady that just like thought she was just getting a corporate gig, and then came to realize, like, oh, I work at the murder hotel now.
Right.
It was interesting, man. There was this poor guy. I don't know. He was like this death metal singer who stayed at the hotel a year before she was there, Elisa Lam. But the internet basically kind of decided that he killed her. He must have killed her, because he put out some music videos and some lyrics that were alluding to things like death and killing women and stuff like that. So they basically, they found this guy and basically just ruined his life. He tried to kill himself.
Damn.
It was interesting. So he was talking about it, how he's like, I haven't released any music since, I haven't done anything, I'm trying to rebuild my life. And this was 2013, you know what I mean? But and he's in the documentary, and he's just like, he was in this weird place where he's trying to be he has this image to uphold, because he's trying to make it
hardcore looking and everything. Yes. But that unfortunately is not.
But it really didn't work out. Yeah, it really did not. So he put out this weird video where he says, like, I did not kill her, but he's wearing a mask.
Oh no, dude!
And he's like, and he like changes his voice and stuff instead of doing the break the kayfabe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
and just,
I don't care if you're in gore or whatever,
right?
You should
you gotta
for that case.
Yeah, but he didn't. He kind of almost steered into it to a point, but the internet basically kind of crucified him.
He sounds like a real Jared Leto.
Yeah. So, very interesting. It's got to me, it has an ending. I think people are unsatisfied with where the case is still. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. It's a weird, creepy place. I'm not going to stay there.
Yeah. It sounds cool.
But I think
it sounds like
I think it's shut down now.
Okay. Like, did the Lisa Lam murder, was that the final, needle in the haystack or whatever?
Yeah, but I mean, the hotel just keeps changing owners and stuff. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. Like, another group of New York investors bought it because it's on a shit ton of real estate in downtown LA. That's worth like $100 million.
And does it have does the notoriety of it contribute to, like, if they were to fix it up or something like that?
They're gonna try. I think so. It's so weird, and this is the most LA thing, where like half of it is gonna be low income housing, and the other half is gonna be like ultra wealth, high end luxury hotel.
Right. Course.
It just makes no sense. Like, go one way or the other. Don't why have them both? But that's what I think, because the LA City Council or whatever the hell, that's what it has to be. You basically have to have homeless people living in like a Rio de Janeiro or something. You know what I mean? So any housing project you do has to be enough rent controlled for something. I don't know. But that's how everything in LA is built like that. It's just it's kind of. Yeah. What do you?
It's crazy how many of those old, how many of them are like those classical, Art Deco 1920s style. Like, they're all these made in a time where they were kind of symbols of wealth and excess and all this other stuff, and now it's just the fact that so many of them have fallen so far in disrepair is crazy. And I mean, I can totally see why everyone thinks they're haunted, because that shit definitely, gives you creepy vibes all over.
And it's a sad story. A woman died, but
that's cool. I'll definitely check. It seems like it's a good medium, like a good fusion of ghost documentary and true crime, right?
Totally.
Totally.
Where you think, it must be ghosts. That's the only reasonable explanation.
Yeah, I like
it zigzag and it goes in another direction.
Yeah, I like that they actually don't go like one of those shitty Discovery Channel around Halloween time TV shows or something like that, where they're trying to
Zach Baggins isn't jumping out the corner.
Yes, no ghost hunter bullshit, please.
Have you experimented with the speed playback feature on Netflix?
It's funny because I'm an editor, so I do that normally, but it's weird. If I'm only intaking information, I'm not against the 1.5 speed thing. But if anyone that's watching a movie like that, that's that does kind of make me shudder a little bit.
Oh yeah. So let me say, a documentary is a perfect use of this speed up.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of it's just dialogue. A lot of it's
if
weird,
you're not even
moody,
paying attention
long
to it,
B-roll shots.
Yeah. If you're just trying to intake the information, I get it. Right.
It's just interviews.
Yeah.
So if you can handle listening to people talk sped up, you're golden.
Yeah.
I agree. It's not great for movies, and I played with it watching a movie. We'll talk about it, but I did try. I did experiment to see how the quality worked for me, sped up, or I never slowed it down. But if you can, speed watching documentaries might be the way of the future.
Yeah, no, I could definitely. I've heard. I'm not gonna specify, but the company I work at has a function like that, and they keep on noting how many of our viewers basically were like, yeah, we love watching your products at like twice the speed just to get more information. So
that's how I listen to audiobooks sped up. Yeah. I go as high as 1.4.
Yeah,
I'll chipmunk it if I can handle it. And if I'm really just trying to plow through and get through it, like I'm not digging this, I will go full chip.
But the more chipmunk you go, it's kind of like cramming for a test, because the more information you take in at a short amount of time, the quicker it leaves your head. I've found
absolutely, and if it's a regretful fiction novel choice,
yes,
then that works for me.
That has worked out in our favor.
Countless
so many times. Looking at you, Meg.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I was scrolling through the free books. If you guys don't know that, and if you have Amazon and you have, what is it called?
The Audible. Is that Audible?
Yes. Yeah, Audible. If you have Audible, there's a whole section of books that are like, a lot of them are classics. There's great stuff in there of just, hey, like it's kind of free. It's like bonus Amazon Prime books for you to download that you don't have to use in one of your credits. And like a lot of the Meg books are in there. I'll just say that. So if you're craving a Meg book, I think every Meg book, I think there's like 6, and I think every like 4 through, I think 3, 4, 5, 6 are all in that bonus book section. So if you want to know the 6th Meg book for free, go for it.
I mean, I know there's such a huge contingent of our fan base that's just clamoring for the Meg Part 5. So,
I mean, yeah. If you guys don't know, if you're not longtime listeners, we had our Meg difference between the book and the movie review. It got yanked down. It's just us talking. It's literally us talking. There's no video footage, no nothing, and it got yanked by, is it Lionsgate? Is it China? Like whatever Chinese
Fox
movie.
At the time?
I don't know, dude. I don't know, but they yanked it, and they didn't even let us demonetize or what. They just took it. They said you this will not stand.
Yeah.
And so you guys, I'm sorry that you're unable to hear that.
Yes, the world will never be able to appreciate
it. Yeah. But anyway, tell me about Wally's Wonderland, because, man, let me tell you something. I rewatched the trailer because I was just like, I had seen the trailer like a couple weeks ago, maybe a week or 2 ago. It hasn't been out that long, I think. And then I was like, wow, Nicolas Cage doesn't talk in the whole trailer. He just screams. You don't hear him actually. Other people talk. But Nicolas Cage doesn't speak in the trailer. He just screams.
Yep. It's not just the trailer, my friend. Not to spoil the whole thing for you, but So basically, I was trying to see how many movies I could cram in for this review, and I saw what was new out there, and I was like, oh wow, this Nicolas Cage movie. Like I thought I saw the press release for them talking about this movie for the first time like 2 months ago. So I was amazed that this movie was already available to rent. And so I, like a dumbass, went to Vudu and spent $20 of my own hard-earned money to give us this podcast a exclusive, so we could spread the word to not rent this movie, because shocker, it is not worth $20. It is very much not. I would not spend any money on this. I would not.
What about $5?
Nah, I would not waste your time to see it for free. It's probably not the worst Nicolas Cage movie ever made, but this is definitely. I don't even know if this is like a tax shelter, like Left Behind level movie. But it is very clear this is one of those movies that like Nicolas Cage filmed on a Tuesday between like lunch and Pilates. And, if anything, I found it encouraging, because it made me really confident. Like, if you and I started a GoFundMe of just us, like, hey, we want to sit on the couch drinking beer with Nicolas Cage, and we raised like $300,000 to get him in for an afternoon, like, we could do it. Because it clearly is like some people raised enough money to get Nicolas Cage to shoot with them for 4 days, and then they just constructed this whole plot around it. And yeah, that's the whole thing. Like, the plot's really easy to sum up. Nicolas Cage is a guy that does not speak at all in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, he's the plot, the movie, like, the thing that sucks about the movie is basically You know how like Nicolas Cage is cool when he's not trying to lean into the Nicolas Caginess, or like, you know, whenever anything tries to be a meme, it just comes off as incredibly, I don't know, like cloying and patronizing or something. It's just very very annoying. That's basically this whole movie in a nutshell. It doesn't take itself seriously as a movie at all. It barely holds up. I like barely would call it a film. But basically the plot is Nicolas Cage is this guy who's like, you know, random stranger who's driving a really nice car in the middle of the desert, and he comes across this small town, and his car gets a flat because it runs over one of those like police speed trap things, those tire flattener things or whatever. And it's really weird. He doesn't say anything. It's kind of reminded me of you know, the protagonist of GTA 3, how you're a guy that's kind of mute that just goes from person to person doing jobs.
Is that the one where you're like a Russian dude living in Queens?
No, it's like GTA 3, like the first one that like everyone played. You know, like how you don't say
like
anything.
Liberty City, New
York.
York.
Yeah, that. But like the whole thing, like before they started getting voice actors, like it's like, oh, here's your assignment. You just like kind of nod, and you know, like that's basically Nicolas Cage in this. He's a cool dude who has his one character trait is he likes to drink this like, I don't know if it's soda or punch or beer or something like that.
It looked like a Monster Energy drink or something from the trailer. He has like a suitcase filled with it.
Yeah, like his trunk is filled with this case of, it's something punch. Like they cut to it a bunch of times over and over again, and it's like basically, yeah. So his car breaks down. The mechanic in the small town is basically like, oh hey, you know, we're gonna have to replace all your tires. Oh, we don't have ATMs around here, and we don't have internet, and you don't have cash. So tell you what, here, I got a job for you. If you clean out this essentially Chuck E. Cheese overnight for us, I'll fix your car up for you for free, and you can leave in the morning or something like that. So, so the other thing is like, this is very clearly like a riff on like Five Nights at Freddy's, you know, that video game.
I was gonna ask because I know what Five Nights at Freddy's is, but like because I shopped at a Target once, and like all the toys are Five Nights, like and like the apps and stuff. Yeah. But what is Five Nights at Freddy's? Is it a game?
Yeah, so it's this game. It's this actually like really great game that I think they're doing another adaptation of, like that's actually specifically for that IP, or they might even be doing another one. I thought I read something about like Seth Rogen doing a Chuck E. Cheese version of this. It's all kind of riffs on the same idea. Five Nights at Freddy's is you get a job as a security guard at something that's like an old Chuck E. Cheese sort of thing, and it's all first person, and the whole gimmick is you're sitting at a control station, and you have security cameras all around the building, and you check different rooms with your security camera. You have like a limited amount of batteries, so you can only check in certain rooms for a certain length of time before your battery runs out, so you have to conserve it. But like you basically notice that the robots in certain rooms start moving. So like you'll see a robot, like you check around in different rooms, and then you'll notice that a robot's gone, and you have to find the room that the robot's in and close the doors remotely for it before it gets to you, or you'll have a giant robot monster come and eat you. And it's really cool because it's atmospheric. It really plays into that whole thing of like, these are mechanical monsters with like cute teddy bear, you know, coverings or whatever.
Because I thought it was like a Puppet Master where like little guys are coming after you.
No, they're big. They're like human size.
Oh, they're big.
So, you know, it's basically it's Chuck E. Cheese. Like that's the whole gimmick, is like, what if Chuck E. Cheese monsters came alive and fucking chased you? So and that's really cool. But the thing, you know, that's a really integral part of that is like, they are clearly robots with this thin skin of like, you know, bear costume or whatever. But this movie, this fucking Willy's Wonderland, like clearly the budget for this movie that like wasn't Nicolas Cage was like $5 or whatever. So like the quote unquote Chuck E. Cheese robots are just clearly people in shitty Halloween costumes or whatever. So it's not even like you get there's a monster chasing you. It's like, there's a guy in a shitty bear costume or ostrich costume or something like that, fake fighting Nicolas Cage, and like there isn't even like an attempt to do anything resembling tension or whatever. But yeah, so basically what happens is just I'll lay out the whole thing for you. Like,
because I was curious, like, who are these kids that are like warning him, like trying to save him?
Yeah, so basically, because Nicolas Cage is ostensibly the main character, but he cannot speak, they suddenly throw in all like 7 other kids like that are your typical boilerplate horror movie cast or whatever to basically do all the speaking for Nicolas Cage and kind of explain the plot. But there's a main girl who is obsessed with trying to burn this building down. Like when the movie starts, she's trying to burn the building down, and the mom from Donnie Darko, or the Sparkle Motion lady, she's in this as the town sheriff.
Oh, shit.
And so she's like the adoptive mom of this girl, and she like pulls her away as she's about to torch the place and says like, hey, like stop doing that, that's not good. And basically, so this girl escapes and gathers all her friends, and they all get together to try to like demolish this place once and for all. And you find out like there's some they talk about it briefly, but it's like this place used to be like a serial killer owned this essentially Chuck E. Cheese franchise and would lure kids in back for private birthdays and would slaughter them or something like that. And then when the cops were coming to find them, they did a satanic ritual.
Just throw them in the ball pit.
It was like one of those Chucky plots. Like, they did a satanic ritual, so now their souls are in these evil Chuck E. Cheese monsters, and the town has to keep on finding new people to lure into this Chuck E. Cheese establishment, so to feed the monsters, otherwise the monsters will attack the town people. It's so dumb. But you have a bunch of teens in it that all kind of like get killed off one by one, and then but it's weird because you have these teens which are doing most of the work for the movie, but like you still have Nicolas Cage in the movie and you need to like work him in somehow. So you don't really understand why, but Nicolas Cage is like a very dedicated worker. Like, they basically give him this assignment. He does not question anything. They basically are like, clean up everything, make sure to take lots of breaks, and we'll be there in the morning. So he's like, most of the movie is just these montages of him like wiping down cabinets and stuff like that. And then he takes breaks every once in a while where his watch goes off and he's got to chug this drink or whatever, and then he plays pinball, and then he maybe fights a stuffed animal monster, and then he goes back to the same old thing. And it's
so he fights an animal, he fights a robot monster, and then continues to clean.
Yeah, he's like totally unfazed.
He doesn't like, oh
yeah,
wow.
And it's weird to the point like it hits a point where it's such a gag where it's even like Nicolas Cage is getting ready to fight a monster. Like he eventually links up with the teenagers and like he's helping them kind of, but there's a scene where him and one of the girls is about to get attacked by a monster and he's getting ready to help her, but then his watch goes off and he realizes it's time for drinking soda and pinball again, so he just runs off and leaves the girl to fend for herself or whatever. And it's very clear, like, I guess they did this so, hey, we can shoot Nicolas Cage playing pinball for a little bit and drinking soda, and we can just keep on reusing that footage over and over. And they do this thing like 4 or 5 times throughout the whole movie, and it's really weird because they keep on seeming to set up like the place where my brain was going to was like, oh, is Nicolas Cage like a robot? Like, is this soda he's drinking like fucking oil or something like that? Like, it would make as much sense as just about anything else in this movie, but they never go into that. He's just some dude. He's just a badass, Nicolas Cage. And yeah, it doesn't really have any cool conclusion or whatever. It's basically like all the teens except for the main one gets killed. Donnie Darko mom gets killed, and they kill off all of the evil monsters and then like ride off into the sunset or whatever. But it's just such a nothing burger of a movie, But yeah, like I would be excited. I really actually do hope they are doing a proper Five Nights at Freddy's kind of movie, because I still think that sort of film like has a lot to mine for just like in terms of good ideas, and this movie doesn't even register. Like, I've already started forgetting about it, so hopefully something will come and just eradicate this idea from the map.
That's too bad. I mean, honestly, I saw it didn't get great reviews, people were saying it's a waste of Nicolas Cage, which it doesn't sound like you would disagree.
Not at all. I definitely think it's I know Nicolas Cage is kind of like revving up for his like Cageissance. Like I know he's like picking better and better roles lately, but this is definitely one of those ones in between.
He's got to pay the Amex bill.
Yeah. Those dinosaur heads aren't going to pay for themselves, man.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit. You did not make it through Space Sweepers.
It
sounds like,
no.
Right? Okay. So, we got to go for a bad one, a good one, a bad one, a good one. I really enjoyed Space Sweepers. It's it's a very kind of fun South Korean space movie. Apparently it's the first. I was like, how is this the first? But they're very proud. This is the first South Korean space blockbuster.
So they've never done anything resembling a Star Wars? I find that hard to believe.
It seems insane.
Yeah.
That's what they claim. I watched all these behind the scenes featurettes. They're like, yeah, this is the first space South Korean movie. I'm like, really? Okay, but whatever. It's good. Made it for $21 million. Not too bad. It looks good. It's kind of got that fun ragtag group, cast and crew of a ship. It gives a lot of Cowboy Bebop vibes to me, where it's kind of, you've got, a weird kind of android character. You've got a strong female. You've got kind of aloof, interesting characters. It's got a lot of Fifth Element-ness to it. It's got Firefly. It's got some Farscape in there. You know what I mean? Not so much Alien. It's all still kind of hard sci-fi. There's no real aliens, I don't think. Everything is it's as wild as it goes.
Space
is kind
colonists. It seems like it's like because it's set in the time where like Earth is inhabitable, but like practically not, and it's a real Elysium situation, right? Where all the rich people live in orbit above the Earth.
Yep, I think so. Right, yeah. So like 3%, or it's either 3 to 5. Basically, they live off-world in this Elysium-esque utopia that has been created by an evil Elon Musk type who basically is trying to terraform Mars, and he basically wants to destroy Earth so that Mars becomes the much more he wants everything to push to Mars. Like he owns stock in Mars. Or something, and so he doesn't want Earth. He wants Earth. Earth is as bad as it can be, but he wants it to be as bad as it can possibly be, or worse. And if billions of people die, it just works better for him. So he's some crazy weird guy. They explain that he's like 150 years old, and he's come up with all this weird science to prolong his own life and all this crazy stuff. It's not really a spoiler, just that's who we're dealing with. But it's basically about this kind of young crew of people who are basically just space junk scavengers who go back to the evil corporation with space junk that they find, and they sell it for scrap. And everyone basically, it's like the company store, right? You owe your soul to the company store or whatever. Everything is on credit. You need repairs. Oh, you hit a satellite. We got to deduct from your account and things like that. So
it seemed like, because I saw the opening scene, this was another one I watched like the first 5 minutes of, and then got distracted. But is it like, since all of the nations of the world are kind of almost exiled to space, like it seems like all of the countries are kind of like almost like kind of vying for junk, like almost in a free market kind of way, like what is it, like there's so much space debris that it's kind of like its own cottage industry to just kind of catch crap before it hits moon bases or something? Is that
right? Yeah, because there's so much just broken down ships and satellites and all kinds of crap zooming around that there's kind of a community of I don't know, I guess I would be like, I guess I would compare them to truckers almost, right, where they all kind of they're kind of competing,
or like Uber drivers or something. Like it's like, here's a gig that we all who right, gets it first, right?
There's a mutual respect among them, I'm sure, but they're all kind of competing with each other over maybe like a Deadliest Catch or something, right? Or where they're all out there together and they would all try to probably help each other, but they're all competing, at the same time. So it's interesting, man. The characters are kind of fun. The female captain is she reminded me of like Revy from Black Lagoon, if you've ever seen that anime or read it. Kind of just like this weird kind of badass killer type or whatever. But there's a lot of cool imagery. The sets are really cool. It's, you know, a lot of it is on their own little ship. I think it's called the Victory, I want to say. It's where they live. It's like the Millennium Falcon, right? Like that is their home. They're flying it around. Everything is dirty and lived in and grungy. They're not so far out in the future, and everyone's poor. You know what I mean? Like they're out in space, but everyone's still kind of poor, right? You're still like hanging your laundry clothes, and there's a kid in the movie that's using crayons and paper. It's not all tablets and like Minority Report hand waving crap like that. You know what I mean? It's still very textual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And gross and grody and that I really enjoyed. It's people who are poor in space.
Yeah, everyone
you know what
always
I mean?
loves. That's the like thing that you love about like your Star Warses and your Guardianses and stuff. It's like that weird juxtaposition of like the super high tech with the super old industrial. That always seems like it makes like it's two flavors that go really well together and makes everything feel lived in too, right? Like everything's not pristine.
Very lived in. Nope. Yeah, it's great. And basically the plot is this kind of ragtag group. They find a old ship that they're going to take in for scrap. They go in to inspect it. They open the hatch. Oh, there's like a little girl inside. She's in a spacesuit, and they're like, how is she alive? How did she manage to survive? And they kind of find out that she is a bomb in the shape of an android that is like skin wrapped so that it's indistinguishable from a child. She just looks like a child, but it's like a little robot, and that little robot is actually like a bomb, and it's actually it's the perfect weapon of mass destruction, basically, because no one really suspects little kids to just be bombs. So you can basically, if you're a terrorist group, you can buy this and just. And it's not like a normal commodity. She's not like a grenade or a claymore mine or something you could just buy. It's this very, very high-end thing that kind of was, developed by a certain
She's like the
group
only one of her kind, basically.
Right. Yeah, she's not like a. It's not like a normal thing.
But say if she fell into the wrong hands, they could probably develop and make more of her, maybe?
Maybe, but they'd probably, like ISIS would want one just to walk into, wherever. So I don't know if they'd be like, let's build more. They would be just short-sighted and probably use it as a terrorist thing. So they basically find a group of buyers who want to buy this thing, like $2 million and stuff like that. What's wild is they still have paper currency in the movie, and the inflation rate isn't what you'd think, where it's like 2 billion schmeckles or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
So space bucks, right? So it's interesting. So they tried to arrange the sale. This is all in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything still. But things go awry as they try to do the handoff, and they find there's a larger conspiracy at foot. It goes from there. So it's a fun kind of space opera, Western style. It's a little Star Warsy. It's fun. It's throw it on, watch it at normal speed. At points there's some points that are slow that I did experiment with the speed, but it really does affect your movie watching experience. Watching like the characters act in a weird way.
Emotional beats require specific. That's the thing is like I said, if you're just taking in information from say a documentary that is mostly just information and not like has a lot of visual artistic flourish or whatever, sure, but things land differently and have a totally, it's the same thing as movies have a different effect on you if you're watching them on a cell phone on a plane versus if you're watching them in a theater or in a good in your living room with a good entertainment system, so. But I was kind of curious, since it gives you the ability to slow things down, I was like, what practical use does that have? I think it's cool. I mean, I guess if they're gonna speed it up, it's cool that they give you the option to slow it down. I guess if you see I don't know, a special effect that's cool and you want to see it in more detail, that might be a thing. But I've heard even less people use the 1.5 slow speed or 1/2 speed than even the quicker speeds,
Yeah, I think it's perfect for either getting through something that you're not enjoying or documentaries. But if you're enjoying something, I can't imagine why you would want to use this.
Yeah, but I think most people get that. I feel like if you were telling you this and it's not, you don't understand what we're talking about, then we're never going to get through. You know what I mean? You're either going to be for that or not, so. I think some people, it's like, yeah, I just want to take in the information or whatever. Especially if it's like I'm trying to cram in 5 seasons of Naruto or something. You know what I mean?
No, that's exactly, yeah. Or it'd be good. Like I'm rewatching some of Big Mouth because I'm like, I never watched the news. I never even finished the 3rd season. So I was like, I'm just watching normal pace. But if you were trying to kind of catch up on like what happened 3-4 years ago, and it would be great. Just speed watch some of the old seasons or whatever to refresh your memory. But anyway,
good.
Tell me about Psycho Goreman, because I watched the trailer for that, my friend, and I was like, is this the Guyver with Mark Hamill? Like this is deep.
Yeah, dude.
Like 1989, 1991, straight to VHS vibes.
Yes, it is like firmly in that pocket. They do such a good job of the Guyver. I had a bunch of different things I was shouting out as I was watching it that like just made me think of it. But yeah, Guyver was one of them. Even just like old Power Rangers episodes, this kind of has
totally
like that vibe. At times, like even some of the makeup reminded me a little bit of like say like the first run of the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings a little bit. Like you have some like goblin-y looking dudes.
The orcs and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, and that is really the main draw for this movie, I would say. Like it's got a lot of great humor to it and the plot's kind of interesting, but like really the special effects and the 80s, the fact that they like really went out of their way to kind of like completely make sure everything is that tactile, like real animatronic, real makeup and everything like that kind of 80s straight to video aesthetic. Like that's the best part of it. The plot is cool. It's basically a little bit boilerplate, like I think intentionally sort of plot where you have 2 kids that stumble upon this, and it's like an amulet or something like that that's buried in the ground next to this guy's body. It's Psycho Goreman, who is I think he's like a space alien from another dimension who's like a warrior that all the other aliens fear because he's like slowly taking over the universe, and he's all powerful. He's basically like a force for like doom. But the thing is, this smarmy little girl has this amulet that controls him, so he is basically forced to do her bidding. And so all the humor hinges from that. It's like you have this little kid who's like a total asshole and an all-powerful being of destruction, kind of constantly reminding people how he's going to kill them and everything like that.
Is she an actual asshole, or is she just a little girl?
No, like the way her character is written is like she's such a little twerp. And it's also like one of those deals where a lot of the humor comes from kind of telling like a bad moral. Like if this was a kid's movie, it's like basically encouraging the little kids to be assholes and everything like that. Like the kids have a dad who's like a total piece of shit too, and it's like one of those deals where a lot of humor comes from. It's very Adult Swim, like that whole thing where it's like it's kind of that like random weird humor. And I will say that's the sort of stuff like I enjoyed it. And some people like, listen, this little girl may put you off on some of this movie. Like I've heard a lot of people complain about her. I don't think she's bad. I actually think she's a good actress, and a lot of her lines of dialogue are funny. But I think the thing is, I feel like especially when you're older, everyone's kind of known a little kid that's a little asshole, kind of. So I think a lot of adults' revulsion is a little bit more tied to that, because I kept on wondering, you could have taken this whole script, it totally reads like a Justin Roiland type of thing. Like it's like it reminded me a little bit of say like a Rick and Morty or what's that show on TBS? It's like Outer Space, something, Final Space. One of those things.
Final Space, right? Yeah, it's kind of the Coco or Conan O'Brien's
space
production company, Final Space.
Yeah,
and then it was on TBS, and I think it got moved to another network, maybe
something like that.
Maybe Adult Swim rescued it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great show, but it's firmly, this movie's firmly in that pocket of like mixing really deep, well thought out like sci-fi worlds with like dick and fart humor, kind of. So that's kind of what you have in this, where it's a lot of the humor is like they have like there's a few gags where it's like Psycho Goreman. It's like he's sitting at the diner with the 2 kids, and like they ask him about his past, and he starts telling some tale about him conquering some species from a distant galaxy, and it starts to show like flashbacks filled with like really cool effects and makeups, and then the kids just like interrupt him and they're like, okay, that's cool, we don't care, and there's like a lot of really good, I know I said it before, but the makeup is like really phenomenal in this. Like some of the gags that they have for like the ways like just people get like just bodies exploding, like his whole thing, he's got a little bit of like Hellraiser to him where he can like transform you into like he can like he doesn't just kill you, he like transforms your body where it's like your body gets ripped into a million pieces, or you get horribly deformed like the fucking dude in RoboCop or something like that, but you're still alive and you're basically experiencing like 1,000 deaths over and over again
on that spinny wheel with hooks.
Well, it's like they transform you into like demon zombies or something like that. But like it's just you get so much humor. Like there's one guy, there's like a cop that like tries to face him off and gets turned into this like melty zombie guy, and like he ends up sticking around for most of the movie as this horribly like deformed, like his gun is like melted into his hand, so he kind of just keeps on firing at things randomly, and he'll like hand notes to the little girl saying like, please kill me and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth a watch. I think it's free on Shudder if you have Shudder, so I definitely, if you can watch it for free, I definitely recommend it. I would lightly recommend a rental. I feel like this will probably be available on Amazon or something like that sometime soon. So
I was like, how is this not on Amazon right now?
Yeah, I think it's a Shudder original, so I think Shudder actually has it. I ended up just renting it. I would, I would say it's not as good as it's not perfect, you know what I mean? Like, it did lose.
It's not perfect.
It did lose a little bit of points from the little girl being a little annoying, but I would definitely, if you're into that sort of 80s throwback gross out kind of stuff, this is good. It's I thought it was going to make a good combo with that Nicolas Cage movie, but this would at least kind of saved the day. Was
it a double feature?
Yeah, I tried to do them back to back, and I was glad I at least saw Psycho Goreman, because Willy's Wonderland, do not see.
Yeah, Wally's Wonderland. Yeah. All right, I watched the most hated film in America. Did you see Run, Hide, Fight?
Yes, I ended up.
You actually saw it?
I actually did.
Oh my
I did
God.
not, I probably would not have seen it, but I figured, since we were talking about it, it would be good if I, like, saw it too, just so, like, I could, come from a place of, like, actually having seen the movie and everything like that.
Sure.
But,
what did you think? Do you think it's a bad movie?
I don't think it's a badly made movie. I definitely disagreed with what it was trying to do, but I was once again, having not known much about it going into it, I was expecting something that was much more poorly made, and I was expecting absolute garbage, and it wasn't that, but I do understand why there is definitely some pushback on it and everything.
So just real quickly, this is a movie that is basically about a school shooting, and a high school senior girl is kind of a female John McClane version of Die Hard, right? So it's kind of like it's a high school shooter, female John McClane, Die Hard. That's basically kind of
Die Hard in high school
overall, right? Yeah. So I think it's towards the end of the year of a high school year. 4 kids have this very elaborate plan to take over the school, do a school shooting. They kill a bunch of kids. They live stream everything on Instagram Live and Facebook Live, and they're very much about garnering attention, and they want to kind of become famous, and they want the world to know how angry they are and all this stuff. And she basically, played by Zoe Hull. I'd never seen her or anything. I think she's on Pretty Little Liars. Or she's on some teen girl show that's very popular apparently. But she was great.
Yeah,
I think
she
was great.
Was good.
I think the guy who plays the main villain killer kid, the kid that's in charge, is played by the Eli Brown, and she is Zoe Hull. That's her character. Isabella May is the actress. They were great. The 2 leads were great. I I have no complaints. Thomas Jane is in it, weirdly enough. He's kind of barely in it, so it's hard to really
you got
complain,
Thomas Jane and Rita Mitchell and Treat Williams as your famous people to, like, you know... who was... There's somebody else that was... Oh, Barbara Crampton's in it, too, randomly enough, too. From, Reanimator and all those 80s slasher movies and everything.
Basically, she kind of... I don't want to get into spoilers and how it ends and all that stuff, but basically she, much like in Die Hard, she kind of makes her way and starts kind of picking off the terrorists and picking off the school shooters one by one as they're kind of going through, and it's done kind of in fun, elaborate ways or whatever. But, it kind of it's more interesting, I think, the backstory of this. And I mean, this movie is hated. I think is it at 13% on Rotten Tomatoes or something? I don't know.
I haven't checked,
but yeah, it's bad. So people they hate that this movie kind of got made. They hate the subject matter, which is weird to me. Like we watch kids get killed in movies all the time. So I don't understand. I mean, and they did. I mean, Scream. There's a million horror movies where everyone who get killed. We've been watching it for 50 years. We've been watching like young people kind of get killed for 50 years in movies. So I don't know why this is weird and egregious and tasteless and classless and but all the reviews are kind of like, how dare you, sir? How dare you?
Well,
how dare you make a movie? And I found it like a weird. I don't know why not. I don't know why this is some sacred topic that you kind of can't do.
Well, the one thing, because that's hard. This is what the movie is kind of asking. It's kind of almost like goading you to be like, yeah, that's right. We're doing this. We're showing you this, and that's like I said, it's not. This is really where how you do things really, I think, matters, especially when you're dealing with such a touchy subject, because it's basically, school shootings are a very somber subject, and this handles, like, decently, okay, this, the visual language of this movie is starts out something akin to, say, Elephant, which was another school shooting movie, or say even something like Green Room, where it tries to kind of highlight the realism, like kind of tries to do a decent amount of time to establish who these characters are and what they're doing, and like little groundwork things like, oh hey, it's senior prank day, so yeah, this tension building up of like kids popping into classes all day and like popping balloons, and something bad's going to happen, and that's all well and good, but when you get into the conceit, oh hey, it's Die Hard in a school shooting scenario, the thing is, it's like Die Hard, or say, like, even if you want to compare it to something that's more similar to this plot line, so something like, say, Class of 1999, or even, like, I don't know, Red Dawn or something like that, where it's kind of a fantasy wish fulfillment kind of thing, where it's like, oh, we have these bad guys that we can dispatch, and, it's all about, you have a character that you can root for, and you have these one-sided cartoonishly bad guys that you can take down and everything like that. So it does execute that idea well, and it's not, I did like some of the techniques that they used in it, but the gratuity of showing the kids, when it finally starts showing kids getting killed and everything like that, it did feel kind of exploitative, in the sense that, like, I didn't like how the main bad guy, the kid that's like in charge of all the school shooters, is basically Hans Gruber. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is like you're trying to lay the groundwork so early on, like, hey, this is realistic, this is real life and everything like that, and then you go full Die Hard. Well, what you're telling me is that you can do this too, you know what I mean? Which is a little, and it's kind of hard. That's the hard thing too, is like, this goes into so much other stuff, and it's hard to like get into it without editorializing and everything like that too. But it's also like one of those things, like, if you're telling me, if you start out saying this is essentially real, and then you kind of turn it into Die Hard, it feels like, I don't know, it's like encouraging, people to, it's saying, hey, cops are kind of totally, inadequate to the situation sometimes, and I don't know, yeah, little things like that definitely like rub me the wrong way. And like, I know there's some it's there is some character development for the school shooter kids, but they are essentially cartoonishly evil kids, and I don't think you're supposed to sympathize with them because they're school shooters or whatever. Like, but it's still like we're still talking about kids shooting kids or something like that. You know what I mean? Am I? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to like not. Am I? I don't know if I'm being too biased here or anything like that. But like, is that how does that track with you or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. I just it's a weird. It's kind of a. It was a fine to nothing movie for me, and I'm just always fascinated with why movies just become, heinous.
Right.
And why, and it's interesting to me because I, in preparing for this, I was like, I wonder how, because the backstory of this movie is very interesting, and it's interesting for a few different reasons, and it all kind of circles back to the premise, but the man who produced this movie is this guy named Dallas Sonye, and he made Bone Tomahawk and Dragged Across Concrete and Standoff at Sparrow Creek, The Brawl in Cell Block 99. Like, he clearly has a whole thing he's going for. Is it Craig Zellner movies?
Like Craig Zoller, I think.
He's done like all his movies and then a bunch of other movies. Like his company is the publisher of Fangoria magazine. Like he has like a real feel, and that real feel is very like clear especially in like the opening scene where she kills a deer. She kills a deer but doesn't quite kill it well enough, so she kind of has to put it out of its misery, and the way she chooses to do that is by like crushing its head with a rock. And you could tell immediately, like, oh shit, like this is a real tone that they're setting in this. So buckle up, like this is what it's going to be. And he couldn't find distribution for this. And a conservative right-wing website called the Daily Caller, that's famous because it was co-founded by Ben Shapiro, bought the North American distribution rights. And so they premiered it. They were like, hey, we're going to get into movies that follow our viewpoint, I guess is what he described. He's like, we support this movie. They didn't make the movie. They just saw it at Venice, or it was offered to them, or I think the co-founders struck the deal with Sonye, and they produced it. They were initially going to pass, but then once they saw it and everything, they decided, hey, this will be our first movie that we want. So if you're subscribed to the Daily Caller website, this is how you would see the movie. It was interesting because I was watching the cast interviews, and the two young leads are young people, man. They're younger. They're like teenagers, right? They're supposed to be playing high schoolers, and they were just doing kind of behind the scene. You can find it on YouTube. It's just, it's like a featurette, behind the scenes featurette. And they both talked about, they were like, yeah, I was really scared to do this movie. Like, I was really nervous. Like, I think it's a good movie to do. I think it's interesting, but both of them said they had people tell them not to do this and that it'll ruin your career, and then blah, 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 and all this stuff. And so I'm fascinated. Like, they're both on Instagram, because I was like, I wonder if they're talking about this or whatever. They're getting like harassed or anything. They haven't posted really. Both of them haven't really posted a lot about it. I don't see a lot of promotion. So they made a movie, and then they didn't know who was going to distribute it, but a very right-wing website basically took it over as its distributor. And I don't know how that's kind of affected them, but I can't imagine it's great to be trying to work in Hollywood when your big new movie is being like, distributed by the guy that is getting like fire alarms pulled on him and like Code Pink, or is it Code Pink or Operation Pink?
Oh, I don't even know.
They basically will go and like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, they'll protest his talks. He'll like have a talk about how he'll have like a debate on campus or give a talk or whatever, and they'll like shut it down. They won't let him have it. Like, he can't do it at Berkeley. Berkeley like told him, you can't come because we can't afford, or we don't want to pay for the security that would be necessary to protect you.
Damn.
So it's kind of wild, right? So it's like wild stuff like that. So and this is also, these are the guys they just hired Gina Carano. Gina Carano got canceled, so they're bringing Gina Carano in so that she's gonna be in some movie or show or something that they're working on. But it's just kind of interesting. Like, I wonder how those kids feel, like if they'd still go back and make this, knowing that the only way you were going to see this is on this website,
So
which is a very strange, interesting kind of, I guess, a new way that things are going to happen.
was this sitting on the shelf for a minute, or like
no, because it premiered at Venice,
like this year, or this most recent one? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's not like new, or it's new. It's not like it hasn't been sitting there and waiting. But it is interesting. It's like we just couldn't find. I don't know. The producer had some credit where he's like, "That's liberal Hollywood for you. They just don't want to talk about this stuff, and they wouldn't, blah blah." So either they would take it, but not under the pretense or the deal structure that he liked or whatever. Or maybe he just got no offers, and that was the best offer. And then Daily Caller was like, "Yeah, we'll snatch it up." But
yeah, it's. I mean, unfortunately, it's like it's hard to think of a topic that would be more harder to sell these days, because it's kind of one of those things. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, it's like, hey, this seems like it's not the right time to release something like this, but then it's never the right time to release something like this, because there's always some sort of national tragedy with school shootings and everything like that, specifically, or just shootings in general or whatever. But I don't think it should be totally blacklisted or whatever. I don't know the specifics. Like, I tried to like make a point of like not reading any reviews or seeing. I didn't know this movie existed until you told me about it or whatever. So but it is yeah, it's a tough one to do. It's a risky movie for sure. But Ben Shapiro has clearly got his thing that he's doing. So like, hey, fucking, you want to put Gina Carano in a movie, do it. You know what I mean? Like, I would say, like, keep on, like, if you have like a whole different, demographic or whatever, like, fucking make it, you know what I mean? And if you do good movies, then, like, that's the thing, is like, if the work speaks for itself, then I'll have, like even if it's not my thing, I'll respect it or whatever. But like, that's the thing, is like, I think in general there's a lot of things that might slant conservative that tend to frankly not be good, like, which are, say, I'm thinking more specifically like pure flicks kind of things, like that kind of sort of stuff or whatever. But that's also,
what is that?
That's like kind of more the religious-y kind of stuff or whatever, like, those kind of Hallmark-ish kind of movies or whatever.
Is that who's the dude?
There's like one guy that's in charge of all of it. It's like the God's Not Dead guy. I think the people that make all of those movies or whatever.
Who's the guy? He was a child actor, and now he's like super Christian.
The Step by Step guy or whatever.
No, not Step by Step. It was
Saving Christmas.
What was the movie?
That guy?
Man, I don't know. No, he was a TV star, and he became like super religious, and he makes like all like straight to DVD religious movies now.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
I know he did like Saving Christmas or something like that, but that's its own cottage industry or whatever. And so, but the thing is, like, I hear a lot of people being like, like, oh, hey, why don't they make more movies like this in Hollywood? And the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, most of those movies are bad. You know what I mean? Like, they, it's one of those things where if you're too message focused, sometimes it'll turn out bad. But like, this, for example, was a movie that and once again, it's totally different. It's like totally different subject matter, totally different tone and everything like that. But I did think, filmmaking wise, it did a pretty okay job. I still didn't agree with what it was doing, but I did, it was well done enough. And they definitely, like, you could tell they had a low budget. Most of the movie takes place in that cafeteria, right? So, and that's the other thing too, when I was watching it a little bit too, which is kind of begs a whole nother discussion or whatever, is people are dumb and somehow still take the worst message away from media sometimes, even if it's like clearly not that. So even though like the bad guys in this are clearly not people to be, idolized or anything like that, if you come out with a movie where somebody fucks a pie, there's going to be one dumbass who burns his dick fucking a pie in real life. So that is one thing. Yeah. When they had the shot of like the car crashing through the cafeteria, and it was weird because it did kind of look like our high school a little bit. I guess most high schools look alike, but
they probably look pretty close.
Yeah, like I was definitely like, once again, even though the movie is not encouraging this, I could see someone getting ideas from something like that. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, it's out in the ether now. What are you going to do? But you get what I'm saying? Like that whole, that's a whole
I hear you.
weird moral gray area for me,
I don't know. But like to me, man, like the whole, well, don't make movies because we're worried people might act like how many Joker movies do we have?
And I agree. And that kind of like is my issue with a bunch of other stuff too. I think
like I love movies about shit that I would never want anyone to actually
100%.
That's where I want that part of people's subconscious.
Yeah.
Looking into doing that. You know what I mean? Like we watched Phoenix, what's his name? Joaquin Phoenix execute a man on live TV on a talk show.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people could do that, but like Todd Phillips isn't worried like, oh shit, are people going to execute Conan O'Brien if I put this in the movie? Like,
well,
I don't know.
That was kind of my beef with the Joker movie a little bit, is like it felt like it's just like when there's things out there that feel like they're kind of like I said, like that was beef I had with Joker too, but there's like certain things where it's like kind of like like we're encouraging your anger.
There was literally a mass shooter that dressed up like went to the Dark Knight thing, right?
Yeah.
And they just keep making them, right? So like there was a guy who literally took the message of that, and they just go, "Yep, well, we're gonna just keep doing it," and it's like. Everyone loves the Dark Knight. Everyone loves Joker. Everyone loves the Batman. Everyone loves...
No.
So I don't know.
I totally agree. And I think it's like one of those things where it's like, now it's not just like an issue of like just this movie. We're talking about like the state of movies as a whole. But to bring up something, I think I had talked about on a previous podcast, like, I had seen a movie that I kind of liked called The Hunt that came out last year that was very controversial and kind of offensive. And I totally understand why it would be to people. But like, I think the one thing with that for me was it's such a ridiculous premise that like, you can't take it as seriously. Like that's my whole thing is like Die Hard in a high school works if like the people holding up the high school are robots or aliens or something, you know what I mean? Like I need some sort of extra layer of fantasy separation because like, the whole thing is like, okay, yeah, if it was in a high school, I'd crawl through the air vents. I would check for, weapons here and everything like that. But like now you're bringing it into this very real world situation, which many people have had to deal with and everything like that. So then it suddenly kind of goes into this whole greater conversation that is like, much harder to parse,
Yeah. Like, how would you feel if they made a Columbine movie? Like, we're going to make a movie about Columbine. The whole movie is about the Columbine killers, and we're going to reenact exactly what they did.
I mean, they basically did that with Elephant a little bit. Like, maybe not beat by beat. And that's, like, one thing I kind of kept on... why I kept on thinking of that a little bit, because there was a few Columbine-ish movies that have come out since Columbine, and even if it's not explicitly Columbine, there's a few like say like We Need to Talk About Kevin or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like clearly influenced by it. And the one thing with those is it's like with Elephant, it's more like it definitely firmly roots you in this like, oh hey, what's it like to be stuck in the middle of a horrible event like this, and it kind of establishes all the lives of the people. And the big difference between them is it doesn't go into this Die Hard scenario, and that kind of begs the question, like, yes, I do think, if you have trained yourself with self-defense and everything like that, it's not bad to know how to get yourself out of a situation like that, and it's not bad to like say, hey, it's okay to defend yourself. But there is like little subtle hints in this movie where it feels like for instance, the police are coded as just like very impotent and like unable to do take care of the situation.
Like the school guard, we didn't have one when we were in school. We didn't have one, but I think in today's age, every school, at least every public school, has probably a head of security or something, like a rent-a-cop that's walking around.
Yeah.
We didn't have any of that shit.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's like a staple of many schools today. And then they have the whole scene where it's like the big bad kid talks to his guidance counselor and talks about how you never thought I would make anything of myself, Mr. Johnson, and everything like that.
Right.
So that's the sort of stuff, that's the part I found most grating about the movie, is like things like that are things that are just like boilerplate, like Die Hard dialogue, you know what I mean? Like that's why I kept on saying he's like Hans Gruber, but if you're going to go in a subject that is this clearly like a hot topic issue in the real world, then I need something more than Hans, basically.
Do you think that people hate this because the message of the movie is guns and training equal safety, and that you're basically nothing without those things, and you're just another scared, powerless person curled up on the floor? Or is it like taking action is bad?
No.
If you can, like, what do you like? I'm trying to get to the core of like people's absolute hate.
Well, no, I get you, and see, that's the thing, is like same thing. Like, there's tons of people out there that like know how to handle themselves and like firearms and all that other sort of stuff, and I have total respect for those people and everything like that. But when you have a movie like this, especially if you're like a high schooler, say you're a high schooler, watch this movie, and you're in this sort of situation, like I would be more likely to maybe do something stupid that might escalate the situation. You know what I mean? I might be like, oh, hey, I can be like this chick in this movie. Boom, shot in the head. You know what I mean? Like it's
right.
So that's the one thing, and it does. Once again, like I don't know if I'm looking into this too much, but it does feel like sometimes you have movies like this that could like inspire a little bit of that vigilante justice thing. And once again, like I get it, like, you know, school shooters is like a real serious subject. I'm not very sympathetic for many of them, even though I know they're kids and they need to have if they have mental issues, they need to have these talked out and they need to be stopped beforehand and everything like that. But like, yeah, the whole idea that it's basically because the law is impudent, you might need to like, there's a lot of that. And even though I feel like the main character or actress is pretty well written, and the main actress does a really great job with her and everything like that, she is kind of that, she never does anything wrong. Her only character flaw is she's too dedicated and can't let go of her mom. So like that's the thing, is it is a little didactic. It's not like too much, like they do a good enough job kind of getting you into the plot, but they do slip in little lines of like, you know, like little things like, you know, oh, you're too busy being triggered to think about all of the people that you killed. And so, you know, they bring up some cogent points, but they definitely, little things like that definitely irked me when I was watching it a little bit. But like I said, I was expecting to totally hate this movie, and I didn't, you know, there were things about it more on the technical side, but I did find it was a more solid piece of work than I was expecting.
Yeah, because I think that's what I'm always trying to get to the bottom of like, we watch movies based on the reviews, and I feel like that's most of people, because there's so much content that we're forced to kind of like use services to help filter out what is worth our time, because time is the most valuable thing we have in life, right? Yeah. So like when a movie has a horrible review, like a score, like a Rotten Tomatoes score is just horrible, it just means don't waste your time on this movie, right? But like, I'm always like interested in how like offensive to me equals bad, don't watch.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where I'm like, well, is it technically product wise bad? Did you not enjoy it? Like, I'm always interested, but I feel like how many movies kind of fall through the cracks of these systems where we just don't really even explore them because we've let someone else tell us not to watch them, or don't waste your time, or don't be challenged by this, or whatever. You know what I mean?
I mean, that is definitely something to consider, and it's hard to say, because I feel like that develops in critic circles no matter what, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, you know, it's, even if you're not all gathering in the same spot and everything like that, I feel like it's just weird. Sometimes it's like a timing thing, like, you know, Like, for instance, like, whatever's going on in the world might not gel with whatever the filmmaker had in his mind when he started production, and then by the time the movie gets released, it just really isn't the right time or place, and then sometimes those movies get discovered, like, decades later and revisited and thought of as masterpieces and stuff like that. So it's very weird. Like, it's the whole thing where, culture is very fickle and kind of circular, cyclical or whatever. So yeah, it's hard to say. It's every movie's like a snowflake. So and it is. There are countless ones that have not seen the light of day for one reason or another. So.
All right. Well, what do you think? Would you give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, do not see it, or do see it?
I mean, I would say if you know, like, what to expect by gratuitous Die Hard in high school, if you would probably know if you're into that or not. It's not schlocky, but it is pretty much what you would expect. So yeah, that's basically, if that's your jam, then you will probably like this, and if it's not, then don't go see it. I would say.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, where if you know those producers and their past work and you're kind of comfortable with that subject matter, I think it's worth your time. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's poorly made. I think it was well acted. Yeah, it's weird, controversial content, but I don't think that equals bad. And I just don't like to see things just be labeled as bad because they're kind of uncomfortable or whatever. But so many of the reviews that I read were like, this is horrible, this is uncomfortable, but it's bad. Like, it's technically bad. Don't see it. It's not like, and I was like, that's just not to the credit of the product. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would say if you have the capacity, give it a shot, because it's a movie you're being told is absolute dog shit, and it's just not. And I feel like I'm defending this thing when I really don't care. But it's really just like it's a system that I don't agree with.
Right.
So if you're not really comfortable with that system, just the myopic, kind of group think that says this is bad because you don't like Ben Shapiro or you don't like the producers. I don't know, man. Like, it's just a piece of art. You know what I mean? To me, like, give it a shot. I encourage almost everyone to watch everything except that piece of shit 2067 on Hulu.
Or Willy's Wonderland. Don't see that.
Or Willy's Wonderland. But anyway, there you go. So I think it's worth your time. I think it's an interesting movie. I like to see a cool, strong, independent female out there just killing people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. She was a good.
She was out there getting it. Did you see the map of tiny perfect things, my friend?
Is that a movie?
Fucking hell yeah, it is.
I've not even heard of this.
Well, my man, you're not plugged in as well as I am, apparently. It is another time loop movie.
Oh, Jesus.
It just dropped on Amazon. It stars the girl who was in Freaky, Maisie something or other. I'm trying to remember her name. She's good. It's Palm Springs, but more PG-13 and cutesy and like rom-com.
Is it like YA Palm Springs or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean,
where it doesn't really get into the dark subject matter. It's a lighthearted little Andy's Mint of a movie. You know what I mean? If you're having a day, throw that thing on. Perfect date movie. Great for a little Valentine's. You're gonna listen to this after Valentine's Day, but you'll have wish you had thought of this on Valentine's Day, if you're listening. It's about like this kind of 17-year-old teenage boy. He is trapped in a time loop and finds another individual who is played by the girl from Freaky, who is also in the time loop. They're just in a small town or whatever, perfect little suburban town, but they just kind of by happenstance run into each other. Because they understand the patterns of how everything is worked day after day after day after day. So when their paths cross, they kind of immediately figure out, like, oh shit, this person's not just one of the robots along for the ride with me.
Word. Is it funny, or I've not heard of this at all?
It has its moments. It was written by Lev Grossman. He wrote all the Magicians books that I think are on like Sci-Fi Channel now.
Okay.
It's good. It's lighthearted. It's interesting. It's got that tension of like will they, won't they, kind of young rom-com stuff going on. The title is The Map of Perfect Things, Tiny Perfect Things. It's basically the idea that they get kind of bored, but they end up kind of showing each other like, hey, at 3:00 this guy's gonna get shit on by a bird. You know what I mean? So I go over every day and rescue him. Like I put my arm out, wait a beat, and he doesn't get shit on. So and she goes, I can top that. And she takes him to go by a lake, and a bald eagle flies down and snags a fish. And so there's like, they each have this list of things that are great little moments that happen. You know, a janitor is by himself in a piano store, and he's playing the piano and he's killing it. And that's at 437 on this street or whatever. So they make this map of all these tiny, cool little things that they come across from all their time. They've been trapped in this time.
Damn.
And it's not clear how long they've been there and things like that, but it kind of builds this. So the guy every day, he makes this map, he draws it out, and they add to it and things like that. So it's it's a little bit too long, but it's as time. I mean, if you're a long time listener, we love those time loop movies.
Yep. It's a.
You know what I mean, so I'm a damn sucker for them. So
so that
fun little movie
that does kind of like make me wonder, since we have kind of discussed a lot of time loop movies lately, and we have discussed how they've kind of become their own subgenre of like the whole Groundhog Day, repeat the same day over and over again thing. And I think I've stated before, like I've always been impressed how it's like Groundhog Day plus X is a formula that still seems to work pretty well. Like, you get your live, die, repeats and happy death days and everything like that. But do you think this is going to sputter out anytime soon, though? Because I am starting to... Like when you said, oh, hey, there's another time loop movie, even though this one does sound very charming, I'm starting to hit a point where I'm like, oh, God, another time loop movie. Okay. And every time I'm pretty impressed with it. It's kind of like how I was feeling with like zombie movies 10 years ago, kind of like when it hit that point where it felt like every iteration of a zombie movie had been done, and then it kind of petered out a bit, and then they still come out with more that are actually pretty good, but just with less frequency. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're still kind of at the apex of these time loop movies now. Yeah,
it's going to force you to get more creative, and I think we've reached the climax, my friend. And by climax, I mean just the end.
It's all downhill.
I think we've reached it.
We got to have a few turds come out first.
Oh, well, hang on there, because did you see the trailer for the new Frank Grillo time loop movie?
Oh, no. But if it's Frank Grillo, it's probably got to be a piece of crap.
So it is basically some sort of weird action movie, John Wick, cartoonishly insane action, Fast and the Furious time loop style
so
shit
he's
movie.
John Wick, but like it's just a video game then, basically, right?
It's a video game movie where he's like living the same day over and over again, and he's being hunted by assassins, and he's trying to kill some. I think it's called Final Boss or Boss Fight. I think it's called Boss Fight.
Oh,
if I'm
yeah, I just saw internet ad for, but this is Joe Carnahan, I think, the guy that did
I don't know the
A-Team and all those. He does all those like super bro.
They ran that across
crime
in the
movies.
Yep. He did something else. He did A-Team. I remember that came up across.
What's the one?
The Gray.
Oh yeah, The Gray. The Gray was great. Gray is actually very good. He did that Smoking Aces, whatever.
Yeah,
all those types of movies
with Ryan Reynolds and Jeremy Piven in it, where he's the magician, and
so this
Alicia Keys is in it.
Yes, early role. So this does kind of, because I was literally reading this on IMDb the other day, but I didn't know this was the plot of it or whatever. That might be kind of fun. Like Frank Grillo, like I was joking before, he does a lot of shitty straight to video movies, but he himself is a good actor, I think.
He does a lot of Netflix original, like,
or like those movies like Bruce Willis does, like where he gets paid $1 million a day or whatever. Like I think he does some of those too.
It's called Boss Level. Let me read you here. It's an upcoming American science fiction film directed by Joan Carnahan, written by Carnahan and Chris and Eddie Borey. Okay, it stars Naomi Watts, Michelle Yeoh, Mel Gibson, Roy Pulver, a retired Special Forces soldier, finds himself trapped in a sinister program which results in a never-ending time loop leading to his repeated death. It has Will Sasso.
Oh, wow. Will Sasso.
And Rob Gronkowski.
Hey, do you think Will Sasso is going to play some sort of dumb boss character, perhaps?
Probably.
Perhaps a dumb executive?
It has two MMA fighters I know, Quentin Jackson and Rashad Evans are in it. So you know it'll be good.
Does that mean, is Mel Gibson the titular boss?
He is Colonel Clive Ventor. I think watching the trailer, I feel like he was like a aide or father figure or something for Frank.
Oh, so he's like the Rambo's general to Rambo.
I think Michelle Yeoh is actually the villain.
Oh, okay.
Remembering the trailer from a couple days ago, but that should do it, my friend.
Yeah,
I think that'll do it.
Give it a shot.
Comes out March 5th on Hulu.
Okay, hey, if it's on Hulu, hey, you mean I don't have to pay any money for it more than I already do?
You already paid for Hulu, but well, there you go. That's the death of the time loop movie, my man. So I think you'll have probably a solid decade off.
Sweet, man. I'm sad. You know, long live the time loop movie. We love the.
Yeah, just give it a break. Let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah, come back to it in like 5 years. Let it sit on the shelf.
Right.
Age a little bit.
Let the USC undergrads work on it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Reinvent it. I got a couple quick TV shows. Do you have any other movies?
Not really. No. I watched Shin Godzilla the other day.
Okay.
That really good movie. It's actually available for free to view. Like, you can rent it for $1 on YouTube, but it's, if you go to archive.org, it's the National Archive Institute just has it there because I guess it's like just a piece of cultural, worth or whatever. So I just watched it on that, and it's a really good movie. We had talked about it briefly because we had discussed
we talked about the Godzilla Kong trailer.
Yeah. So after hearing for years about how like, oh hey, this is a really good Godzilla movie, referring to Shin Godzilla, I finally checked it out, and it's really dope. A lot of people have said this before. I'm not like the hugest Godzilla fan. Like I've seen some of them, but I'm not like deep cut knowledge of all the lore and everything like that. But this one works really well because it's goes back to the roots of the original that seem to work best, where Godzilla is like a metaphor for nuclear power and nature power. So this one is very clearly like alluding to like Fukushima and just all of the tsunami and everything like that. So there's imagery in it that evokes it. And we had discussed how, the cool thing about it is there's the whole movie, like there's a lot of human characters in it, and the way there's a lot of Godzilla shots in it, but it's more about the humans, and it actually makes the human characters work in a way that I think is interesting. Like, one of my biggest qualms about the American Godzilla movies is the humans are totally useless the entire time and kind of just like unnecessary to the plot. But in this, it's like, Godzilla's basically this weird monster that comes out of nowhere. I don't think they even like fully explain it. It's basically this weird creature comes from the sea one day, and it looks ridiculous at first. I think we talked about how, this movie got some flack for how bad Godzilla looks or whatever. And so like when he crawls up on land, he looks like a floppy, I don't even know, like a turtle or something like that. Like, he's almost kind of cute looking or whatever. And then he like slowly morphs into this giant monster. And then like the movie is really about the bureaucracy of the Japanese government trying to deal with this like weird natural disaster. And it's really interesting because that's where you get a lot of the things that feel like it touches home with modern day, especially, like you can draw analogies to the pandemic response to it too and everything, because it's just all these Japanese bureaucrats, and all of them, for the most part, a lot of them are more concerned about their political careers than any of the actual going-ons of saving people or whatever. Like, they're concerned about people, but they don't want to say anything that would make them look stupid because it's an election year kind of thing.
Right.
So it's really, and they'll do things where it's like they have like a group of politicians go vote on a motion, and then that group of politicians has to go into another room to vote on another motion, just because that's the way the government is arranged and everything like that. So it's pretty good, and there's some good Godzilla effects. Like, it finds a good balance between, it's like, I think it's digital effects, but they actually did a good job of kind of making it feel a little bit like that cheesy, Toho feel of the original Godzilla movies, but still kind of makes it, something more realistic. Like, it's still, there is logic to how its size is and how it affects the environments. And there is some really great imagery of, like, cities on fire and everything like that is actually very potent and everything.
It reminded me of, what is that other crazy Japanese monster movie where it's like a person or a baby or a giant something that takes
Big
over.
Man Japan, is that the one?
Yeah, I think that's what I like. Like the imagery really reminded me of kind of a similar style.
Yeah. It's a very specific, like, it's cool. Like, I really do feel like it's one of those things that's so ingrained in just, like, Japanese culture that it's like, you can imitate it any way you want. But, like, I feel like, especially Toho Studios doing it, like, it's like, got its own specific kind of feel and everything. So yeah, it's definitely worth a watch if you'd like a nice alternative to your giant fighting monsters.
I love me a rubber suit Godzilla, but, give it a shot.
With the times.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, I saw Clarice, the CBS show that is I guess a spinoff you would call it, of basically picking up exactly where Silence of the Lambs ends. And I was like, what an interesting premise, just take this like classic movie and then just pick up where that exact story left off.
The further adventures of an emotionally scarred kind of woman.
Interesting. Totally. And it's about Clarice Starling. No real mentions, there's only been one episode out, so watch the first episode. It's up on Amazon Prime too, I think, if you want to see the first episode. But interesting, you know what I mean? So I don't know how close it is to any of the sequel novels. I mean, I've seen all the movies and everything like that, but I don't know if this is perhaps based on books that were written by the same author, or if he even got into this.
I don't think so, because Thomas Harris famously
Yeah.
only has written like 4 novels, and most of them have been adapted into Hannibal movies. But But so I was curious, like the one thing I thought I heard about this was, is this show, like, due to legal reasons, can they not mention Hannibal Lecter, because since they already have a Hannibal show, is that the deal where is that why it's called Clarice, I think? Or
I don't know if that's the backstory. They do not, they alluded to him, but they do not mention Hannibal Lecter.
Okay.
So they may not have the right to that IP to be able to mention him, which is very strange. But like all the other IP, I mean, all the moth imagery, Buffalo Bill, like they say that they make mention of things that happened in the original film,
and
all the time. They adopted similar characters and the same characters.
Is it set in like 92 or whatever? Or
it's set in 93. Okay. So it's supposed to take place 1 year after Buffalo Bill has been captured and killed. And basically immediately the mother of Catherine, who was the woman who was rescued, is now, the AG or something, brings Starling back to DC to help out with a murder that seems to be a serial murder where 2 women are found dead. By now, the daughter, Catherine, is like weirdly, creepily obsessed with Clarice in a way, like trying to constantly call her and talk to her, and feels like she's the only one who can relate to her. She has Precious now, if you're ever wondering what happened to Precious. Like, this crazy woman now has her, so she's, it's wild, man. I think Catherine is being developed to be like some sort of weird villain in this somehow. Yeah. Okay. So, well, so it's interesting, man. I mean, it's not episodic in a way where it's not like a procedural. So there seems to be some larger overarching story that they'll follow, kind of like more of a season of Mindhunter, kind of,
like a Dexter. Like, there's got to be a big bad, even if the episodes are episodic.
It seems like it. Yeah, one in, it's kind of hard to tell because you're one in, but kind of interesting, for a CBS drama, dude. Like, I don't watch that TV.
Did they ever? Because I've never actually seen the Hannibal show either. But
that's really good.
Yeah, but so I keep hearing A, it's very good. The two things I always hear about is A, it's very good, and B, it's very gory. Like they're always like, I can't believe they got away with this on network TV. So is there any indication? Is like Clarice at all trying to go down that route, or is it trying to probably do something else?
Not too bad. I mean, I'm trying to think. Nothing was super gory. I mean, they find these dead girls and they're looking at them and dissecting them or taking them apart or whatever. But nothing seems to be too bad. Okay. Beyond normal network television. But yeah, Hannibal had a very different feel. It has a way kind of smarter, darker vibe. This is interesting, but it's also just kind of dumb cop boss doesn't like Clarice Starling and is giving her a tough time because she's young, and it's kind of annoyingly simple in some certain ways.
Like is it more like a regular CBS kind of cop drama, but like with some Silence of the Lambs window dressing, I guess, or it feels a little bit better than that, a little bit smarter, but they man, I'm trying to remember the dude's name, but he's a character actor. He's been in everything. He's been in a ton of movies, TV. He's kind of her boss, in charge of her, the sergeant or something. I don't know what he is, but is that the guy that was?
He's been in like the Mighty Ducks. He was in like my favorite role of his was Sex Drive, where he's kind of this guy, this disgruntled ex-boyfriend who comes to beat the shit out of the kid that bangs his girlfriend like while they're on the road trip. He was in
Walking
D3 the Mighty Ducks.
He's Abraham from Walking Dead. Right?
There you go. That was his biggest role. Yeah. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, that would be probably his most recognizable role. I mean, I remember Band of Brothers, but he's been in everything, man. You'd recognize him. He's been in a million things, but he's kind of her dickhead boss that's giving her the business.
Yep, just more. I'm glad that there's still more asshole bosses for Clarice to deal with.
That's pretty much it. I mean, I caught 2 episodes of Resident Alien because Sci-Fi and their infinite wisdom put them on YouTube.
Oh,
it's like you put them on YouTube. I'll watch them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
it's I did not know that. I did end up seeing the first episode of it. Okay. But so it's a sci-fi show. Is that the deal?
Sci-fi show with Alan Tudyk. He plays an alien that kind of crash lands on Earth, assumes the identity of a local man who is kind of, I guess, living kind of off in the woods by himself, but was a doctor in real life and then kind of retired because he wanted to have his like Henry David Thoreau years living in the woods or something. And a murder happens, and they go out and they're like, well, you're a doctor and the doctor was killed, so can you come in and help us out? And you kind of learn why he's there, what are his intentions, and he hasn't had much interaction with other humans, so he's weird and quirky. And if you like shows, God damn it, what was it called? It was on TBS.
Oh, a Resident Alien? Not Resident. It's Earth to something. Earth to Norm.
People of
Earth. Yeah. Where it's
if
the
you
support
like People of
group
Earth
or whatever for alien abductees.
Yes, but there were actual aliens
Yes.
abducting the people and stuff. It's great, and I think it's too bad. I think it got canceled after 2 seasons. But what's funny is one of the actresses from that show is also in this.
Oh, is that the love interest
like,
in this?
Yeah, the woman who kind of is the bartender. She was one of the people being counted. She was one of the characters on People of Earth. And I'm trying to remember the actress name, but I was like, how odd, man. Like, that's a weird thing to kind of fall into, like, back to back.
Hey man, wherever the work's
almost.
good.
Yeah, I mean, get paid, bruh. Yeah. So, it's interesting. I think I like People of Earth a little bit better than this because it's a little more funny. This is a little bit darker sometimes in tone.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised by that. Actually, that's the thing, because I think I enjoyed it. It's same thing. I only watched the first episode, so it's kind of hard to get a read on it. And I think we were pretty this was like one of the last things I viewed in the weekend extravaganza of just watching things.
Sure.
So I was like kind of tapped out at that point. But I was a little bit like, I like the whole anti-hero angle, you know, like the whole thing, like it's like a hero that you're not supposed to be rooting for, doing things you're not supposed to be rooting for. But that did kind of like, towards the end of the first episode, it was like, oh man, am I going to have trouble rooting for this guy? Because, you know, at least at the point of the end of the first episode, it seems like he's not too good of a character or whatever. You know,
Totally.
morally.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah. He's not kind of. I feel like Coneheads, and there's been
Invader Zim
movies and shows.
I definitely thought of Invader Zim watching this.
Yeah. You got to get weird with it, I think, if you want to go down this kind of premise.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely, you know, he hasn't been sent here for any good purpose. And he doesn't have any respect for humanity. He has lines where he has lizards placed higher up the
evolutionary
food chain
or,
than humans and stuff like that. So he doesn't really have any respect for people, and I guess that's where maybe they're starting him and they're gonna character develop him up.
Yeah,
where he
I'm sure
doesn't want to kill children and stuff.
I'm sure that's going to be his arc, is where he suddenly falls in love with the planet, and hey, maybe these Earthlings aren't so bad after all, and everything. But on the other hand, too, it's like I feel like the things we just mentioned, we've seen the secret alien, living amongst you. Solar Opposites is another one too, where the end goal is to take over the planet. So that's the other thing I feel like I'm, like I said, it's too early to say, but I do kind of wish, I hope that there's more angles in it to, if I was to watch the rest of it, I would need a little something more, I feel like, and maybe it'll get better, it's still starting off and everything like that, but
I forgot about Third Rock from the Sun too when I was thinking about this. There's so many.
So many, and that's the thing is. But I will say the alien is well designed and the effects are pretty good. TBS, they make some. This
is sci-fi, bro.
Yeah, it's kind of old news at this point, but yeah, they do some pretty low key good stuff that often does not get enough attention, your
Are you talking about sci-fi or TBS at this point?
Shit, I forgot that this was sci-fi. Well, and same thing could be
because I would agree with you on TBS.
Sci-fi
TBS is cranking
has some good stuff. I don't think they're as good as TBS, but they're doing the same thing where I think at some point 7 years ago somebody was like, hey, all of our programming is shit, what can we do to turn this boat around?
You don't like Stargate Atlantis?
Oh, yeah, the classic. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love watching...
You don't like SG-1, or are you more of a... what were all the... Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's just been... Because they're all on Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever. I'm like, man, there's got to be a hidden gem somewhere in one of these old sci-fi shows, about, they're always some weird... secrets government agency that's in charge of elves or something. I mean, they all suck.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
they're not really sci-fi to me. A lot of them are weird fantasy, nonsense.
Yeah,
shows.
Sci-fi definitely.
I bet we're gonna get murdered over this one. The Sci-Fi Channel nerds are gonna come out and kill us.
I mean,
all 12 of you guys.
I'm glad, dude, because it's basically Sci-Fi had that 10-year period where it leaned into the sci-fi original stuff so much that it eventually gave us all the Sharknadoes, and that had ran its course, and now I think they're trying to do, kind of edgier, purposely, isn't Happy on Sci-Fi, that show with the...
Yes.
So that's something I'm like, okay, this is very barely counting as sci-fi, but I think but I feel totally that's the sort of thing they're going for now, because I know there's a bunch of other examples aside from Happy that I've never ended up watching, but it all seems like they're going for that kind of it's almost more of a grindhouse feel, exploitation-y sorts of things that have some sort of supernatural element, so you could call it sci-fi, but it's really just extreme something or other,
Right. I mean, Krypton, I remember watching, I think, the first episode or two. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking at right now, a lot of Stargate, a lot of Z Nation, a lot of, 12 Monkeys, the show.
Right.
Let's see, Deadly Class. Did that ever come out?
Well, that's one. Yeah, that came out. But that's one. It was like, hey, this is based on a comic book. It's about high schoolers, like a high school filled with assassins or something like that. Mm-hmm. Once again, don't see what's really sci-fi about that. But it's like, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they like rebrand eventually or something, because they're definitely reaching out for something different. But,
you know, Caprica. There's a lot of vampire shows. Haven.
Yeah.
You know, remember
vampires don't read to me as
Andromeda.
sci-fi. You know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, Caprica, Andromeda, Battlestar, all that stuff, sure. But, like, you know, you got to keep it in space a lot of the time. And I feel like once you start being like, you know, dragons and vampires, that's sci-fi too. It's like, okay.
There's a lot of Van Helsing type situation stuff happening here.
Man.
Yeah, I don't know.
But, you know, whatever gets you views, like, you know, that's the thing, is like, I don't care as long as your content's good and they're making some effort. And you know, same thing with TBS. Like, TBS has probably shown reruns of Seinfeld, you know, for 90% of their ratings or whatever for the longest time. And now, you know, they've got some things. What's that show? They got that one show that's about the family that's on the lam. It's like The Getaway or something like that.
Right. I've never seen it, but yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm like, what premise did they invent where like a family is basically on the run? Anyway,
it's actually pretty good. Like, yeah, it's one of those things like where I was like, oh, this sounds stupid, and then I watched it and enjoyed it, and I feel like that's like a lot of those new TBS shows. It's like I tend to, even though they've done better stuff over the last like decade, like it is kind of that thing where you're like, oh, it's a TBS show, so you assume it's going to be shittier, and then sometimes they catch you off guard, you know.
No, I mean, Nick put Search Party on his top 10 shows list. But I was like, man, I got to watch that. The one where they're trapped on the desert island.
Yes, it was like kind of lost. I can't remember, but yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, I think it's like, so I'll check that out. I don't know. I got a list of stuff.
But that show's been on for like 5. That's the thing, is like you never hear of these shows, you know?
No. I mean, at Search Party, you get out there, you hear some stuff because it's on HBO Max now, so... It's a little bit
Search Party was kind of like a weird... I remember watching the first season of Search Party on TBS like 4 years ago. And yeah, once I got HBO Max, I was like, oh, shit. This show's still on the air. Yeah, you know, so I'm glad that they're still doing something interesting, especially with comedy, you know, because comedy is kind of harder to change the formula with, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where like a middle ground network like TBS is great for steering into that, like low budget, give people a chance, let young creatives do some stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you might have some weird hits. I mean, it doesn't have to be the animation costs of a show like Final Space or something, but.
Yeah,
you know, if you really believe in it, you got the next Rick and Morty or something. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing, is you should just continue to lean into the being counter programming to things like Fox shows or basic cable channels can't take the risks that you can. So yeah, definitely just keep on finding whatever weird ideas are out there, and one of them will hit eventually, you know.
Well, there you go. That's our message of keep it weird.
Keep it weird, people. That's our message to all of you viewers, too. All of you people out there. Be little weird, you know, snowflakes in the wind, and, make your own weird shit.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed some of these. If we publish these later on as non-spoiler reviews, but there are actual spoilers in them, I want to let you know how sorry we are. We do apologize. You know, we do our best.
Yeah,
we're just trying to get the word.
We're trying here. We're not very smart too, so you kind of have to give us a little bit of slack. You know, like we're doing our best with what we can. But
thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. If you listen to this whole thing, check out the segments later on. Check out the website, thedisorderly.com, if you guys want to see some other stuff. Like, subscribe, share. But
ring that bell. Just ring the bell. If you're doing it, it's a fun. It makes a little clicky noise. Whatever.
You'll dig it. I've never subscribed to anyone's notification bell, but give it a shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you're just a fan of bells, you know, it can't hurt.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you later.
Peace, guys.